Testing. That's great. Fantastic.
Hot on the mic.
It is real hot. I think I can lean back. Good evening, everyone. It is time to call the September 22nd work session into order. Elizabeth, can you call the roll, please?
Mayor Harker,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cooper,
Here.
Commissioner Gilligan,
Here.
Commissioner LaPiccolo,
Here.
Commissioner Oliver,
Here.
Commissioner Spiegler.
Here. Thank you. We have an agenda in front of you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda unless there's any questions?
So moved.
Got a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now, we've got a few items of consent. We have the East Carteret High School Homecoming Parade application, and that parade will take place on Friday, October the 24th. We have the Maritime Museum Wooden Boat Show application, and that event will take place Saturday, May 2nd of 2026. We have a street sweeper MOU with the town of Cedar Point. They will have access to the Beaufort Street sweeper and operated by the Beaufort staff at a reimbursable rate for FEMA improved equipment. We have the town tuition reimbursement contract. This is with the Assistant Town Manager Elizabeth Lewis to reimburse her. She's getting her MBA, and we're going to be able to lock her down for 5 years. That's a great investment. We have the Ann Street project. We were fortunate enough to get a grant from the DEQ awarding us $120,000 for the observation deck at Ann Street. We have the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. That's a potential funding source for the waterfront bulkhead and boardwalk reconstruction. The application and the resolution is for $500,000. And then we have a personnel policy amendment, and section number 23 involves medical leave and return to work. Can I get a motion, unless there's any question, to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
We've got a motion on the floor. Any further questions? No. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right. We have two presentations. The first one is going to be about the 2025 Municipal Public Education Outreach. We have Miss Caitlin Sabadish. I always want to mispronounce her name, but it's bad in there, so Caitlin Sabadish with the Carteret County Board of Election to give us some information. And thank you, Caitlin, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for having me. Like Mayor Harker was saying, I'm here to provide y'all just a brief overview of the 2025 municipal election, what contests are on the ballot, what contests are opposed, and what to expect as far as deadlines and important dates, early voting details, and all of that. So, as far as the town government organization, everything is outlined in the town charter. So the town charter outlines that the mayor term is a 4-year term. That was recently amended. So 4-year term for mayor. There are 5 commissioners that are elected on an alternating schedule of 3 and 2. So they alternate in odd years, electing 3 and then electing 2 for 4-year terms. Any resignations and appointments are not unexpired terms. This means that any appointments that are filled will fill through the full term expiration and not on the next regularly scheduled election. The type of election that is outlined in the town charter for the municipal election is nonpartisan plurality. This means that you will not see party affiliation on the November ballot like you would in a primary election. So all of these contests are nonpartisan. As far as looking ahead to November and looking ahead at 2025, there are 2 commissioner seats available this election. So the mayor term is not up. There's only 2 vacant seats for the town commissioners. We do have sample ballots available. You can see that there are 3 candidates that ran for a vote for 2 contest, along with 2 write-in spots. So the way that the candidates get on the ballot, there's a candidate filing period that lasts about 2 weeks. So the candidates have to come in, they must complete campaign finance paperwork and outline their intentions to run. At that point, we verify that they are eligible to serve in the jurisdiction in which they would like to represent, and make sure that they're registered voters as well in that jurisdiction. So that candidate filing period concluded on July 18th at noon. With that, we had 3 candidates filed, as you can see, for 2 for a vote for two contest. So this, I want to highlight what an overvote and what an undervote means, because a lot of times folks get confused. So if we've got 3 candidates on the ballot in a vote for two contest, it means that only 2 of those bubbles can be circled in, vote for 2. In the event that a voter were to select all 3 candidates, that is going to catch as an overvote because we voted for more than 2. In that instance, the contest in which an overvote was recorded will count as no vote because the machine cannot determine the voter's intent. So in a vote for two contest, whether it's one of the candidates that has filed or a write-in candidate, 2 bubbles can be circled in a vote for two contest. So with the write-in votes, we can write in anyone. I will say that the write-in votes are a manual process. We're at the Board of Elections, we're an office of 4, and we have to manually go through every single one of those write-in votes. So we see all of your Santa Clauses and your Dolly Partons and your Rebas, okay? I'd love to see Dolly Parton in the office as much as anybody else, but she's not registered to vote here in Carteret County. So when we get those write-ins, we go through them, we make sure that anyone that is eligible as a write-in candidate is counted. If an eligible person living in the jurisdiction is registered to vote, meets all the criteria of a qualified candidate, if they get more than 5 write-in votes, we have to publicize those results. So anything less than 5, we don't have to publicize it. Anything more than 5, you'll see when the results are finalized at Canvass. Canvass is always 10 days after the election. As far as voting and eligibility, you must reside within municipal city limits. We have a lot of folks that get confused. You know, they want to participate in the municipal election, they want to get involved, but you have to live within city limits. So we have people that live outside in the ETJ that want to participate in a municipal contest. They're very passionate about parking, etc. They cannot vote in a municipal contest if they live outside the jurisdiction. So they must meet all the registration requirements, they must be registered to vote, and they must be over the age of 18. For the municipal election, we will be having absentee voting, early voting, and voting on election day. As far as absentee voting, those ballots must be requested. So in North Carolina, every single ballot has to be requested by the voter or a near relative of that voter. It's a short, simple form that must be submitted to the Board of Elections office. We'll process that, ensure that that person is eligible to vote and able to receive that absentee ballot. In a lot of states, if you watch national news, you hear stories of, states sending out ballots to every registered voter in the state. That's not how we do it here in North Carolina. Those ballots must be requested. The deadline to request an absentee by mail ballot is October 21st at 5 p.m. So someone can request an absentee ballot through an online portal available at the State Board's website, or they can come on down to our office and fill out a form in person. When returning the absentee ballot, a photocopy of the photo ID is required. So that a photo ID is required for all forms of voting. I'm just going to highlight absentee by mail specifically now. So when you get the absentee ballot, it's going to come in a big envelope like this. It's going to say official election mail. It's going to have the voter's address and return to Carteret County Board of Elections. So inside this big envelope, it's almost like one of those Chinese dolls that breaks down to smaller and smaller and smaller. So inside that big envelope, you'll find not 1 but 2 smaller envelopes. This smaller envelope is the return envelope. This keeps the photo ID private when it's going through the mail. So this is the envelope that's actually going to get postmarked when the voter returns their ballot. So going in this absentee ballot return envelope is a smaller envelope where the photo ID must be returned. So the photocopy gets slid into this clear sleeve. Then on the back, it has all the necessary requirements for the board to accept that ballot. So if you know someone that requests, if they're asking you to be their witness, if they need assistance filling out their ballot, this is what you'll need. So on the back of this envelope, it's yellow. You'll need the voter's signature. It's required. You'll need 2 witnesses, or the voter will need 2 witnesses to print their name, sign their name, and print their address. We have to have all three of those things. Otherwise, it enters a cure process for an absentee ballot deficiency. If there's any type of deficiency, our board cannot approve it as is. We have to go through the cure process. And the voters are contacted as far as that process and what elements of the absentee ballot must be cured. So if we've got all those things checked, it has to be, well, I'll say 2 witnesses or a notary. So if you don't have your 2 witnesses, you can grab a notary and have them notarize this ballot before it gets sent back to us. If you are assisting anyone in filling out their ballot, let's say they've got shaky hands, they can't exactly fill in the bubbles on the paper ballot, you just mark down your information as the assistant and return it to the Board of Elections office. Inside the big envelope, there's also a common ID flyer. This highlights what IDs are acceptable for photo ID for voting purposes. So this is included. We also include a 4-page instruction sheet. I know it's very, very small writing. I wish I could make it bigger, but I can't. And we also have an ID exception form. This is always going to be in yellow. If you know someone that does not have a photo ID, let's say for a religious objection, they can fill out this form, say I have a religious objection to having my photograph taken, I can't provide a photo ID, and they include this along with their ballot. If you know someone that just doesn't have a photo ID and they would like to get one, the Board of Elections does provide free photo IDs to any registered voters in Carteret County. That process takes about 10 minutes. They go into our office, they fill out a short form, we take their picture on the spot and print it right then and there. So if you know someone in that situation, send them down to us and we'll make sure they're squared away. All absentee by mail ballots must be returned to the Board of Elections office by 7:30 on election night. If you remember a few years back, there used to be a 3-day grace period for mail returns. That is no more. So the law has changed. All ballots must be returned either by post or delivered in person to the Board of Elections office no later than 7:30 p.m. on election day. As far as early voting, we will be doing early voting for this municipal election. The dates will run October 16th through November 1st. Our hours are Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we will have, and then Saturday, on that last Saturday, it's the one and only Saturday, November 1st, it's 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So we get a lot of folks that wait until the absolute last minute to go to early voting, and they panic, say, oh, it's the last day of early voting, I gotta get there, and they show up at 4 o'clock because they thought the hours were 8 to 6. Okay, so on that last Saturday, the hours are cut short. We will have 3 locations. We'll have Western Park. That location's right there in Cedar Point. We'll be at Fort Benjamin Park in Newport, and we'll also be at the Board of Elections office right there on Live Oak Street. If you know someone that has missed the voter registration deadline, they can register and vote during early voting. That is only for early voting. That does not happen on election day. So if they miss the voter registration deadline, they have to go to early voting to register and vote the same day. On election day, it's Tuesday, November 4th, the big day. The voting locations for Beaufort municipality will be the Beaufort 1 precinct at the Boys and Girls Club and also at the Beaufort 2 precinct at the Board of Education building. So we will have those 2 locations open for election day voting from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. The polls will be open. The voter registration deadline to change your address, update your party affiliation, change your name, that is October 10th at 5 p.m. So that's a hard deadline for us to receive paper documents from the DMV. Is October 10th at 5 p.m. To touch a little bit on photo ID, a North Carolina driver's license is a perfect example of an acceptable form of photo ID for voting purposes. I do want to highlight that we cannot use temporary IDs. So if you go to the DMV, say your driver's license expired, and you go to the DMV, they hand you a paper copy or mail you a paper copy of your driver's license. You cannot use that for voting purposes. So we ran into that a lot in 2024. I'm trying to get the word out that that is not an acceptable form of photo ID. And if you are in that situation or know someone that is, send them down to our office. We'll print them a photo ID card. It's got their picture on it, their name, their voter registration number, and it's good for 10 years. did talk a little bit about the ID exception form. Those reasons are religious objection, reasonable impediment, they were unable to get a driver's license or a photo ID for X reason, or a natural disaster within 100 days prior to the election. There are a couple nuances with photo ID and what is acceptable and what is not. If a voter is over the age of 65, they can use an expired ID if it was valid on their 65th birthday. So if they had a valid driver's license when they turned 65 and now they're 85 and it's now expired, they can still use that because it was valid when they turned 65. A driver's license, a passport, it can be used if it is expired up to 1 calendar year. So let's say your driver's license expired 2 weeks before the election, you can still use that because it expired within 1 calendar year. There is an approved list for tribal enrollment cards, government-issued cards, and also student ID cards. Carteret County Community College is not on that list of approved IDs. So that gets approved at the state board level. They have to submit an application form and jump through all the hoops to get on that list and approved by the state board. But sometimes we do see Carteret County Community College that is not on the list of acceptable and approved IDs for photo ID and for voting purposes. Just to touch on some voter registration statistics, in 2023 we had almost 27% voter turnout. This is pretty standard for what I've been seeing the last however many years I've been doing this, I guess 6 years in October. We are lucky if we get 27%, 23%, 25%. That is significantly lower than what we see in a presidential election. In a presidential election year, we'll get 83, 82, 80% voter turnout. Hey, I think that just has to do with how much it's in the media, how much people are talking about it. But really, that's why I'm doing this, is I want to reach the public. I want them to get encouraged and be encouraged to get out and vote, to really drive up that voter turnout. Everything happens right here at the municipal level. It's incredibly important. So tell your friends, tell your family, encourage them to really get out and vote no matter which municipality that they live in. I think it's very important, so I'm advocating for that. The town of Beaufort, within the municipality, there are 3,864 registered voters within city limits as of last week when I made this PowerPoint.
Okay.
So that number changes daily through our list maintenance processes, through new registrations, etc. So I'll open it up for Q&A. If y'all would like to do that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you. Any questions about the election? Good.
On the absentee ballot, no longer, if you just request it, there don't have to be no specific reason?
No, a reason does not have to be, or it's not required to provide a reason. Like, I'm out of town, I'll be on
Right.
vacation.
Yes.
Nope, they fill out the voter registry, or the absentee request form, and that's all we'll need.
And on the ID, is the new North Carolina ID required or any
It's any North Carolina driver's license. So if it's a DMV issued license and it's within those expiration requirements, that's good for voting purposes. It does not have to be the real ID.
real ID? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Ms. Badish?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you, Caitlin. We really appreciate you coming. I think this is great to educate both us and the people, the public. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I do have a question about the CCC ID. So that's just pretty much a student ID, not necessarily directed to the community college, but or any,
It's really just photo ID for
Photo
voting
ID,
purposes.
okay.
So if that student ID has a photograph on it, the college can submit a request for approval of that photo ID to the state board, and the state board has the jurisdiction on whether to approve that as an acceptable form for voting purposes or not.
so any school ID, like East Carteret High School, if they're going to be living in the area and using that as an ID, can that be?
It would have to be approved by the
the
State Board of
Okay.
Elections.
All right, so none of that's approved. Okay, well, thank you. Unless there's any further questions, thank you for coming out and educating us. Voting is always important. We do it all the time, and it's really good to know what's going on at the municipal level.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. And if you have any questions, if you think of anything later, y'all know where to find me.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you. Now, our next presentation, we've got the Crystal Coast Veterans Day Parade that's coming up. We have Mr. Pete Benton, who is the chairman, and he has shared some amazing things that are going to be going on with this Veterans Day Parade, and has wanted to share that with the board.
Madam Mayor and distinguished members of the commission, my name is Pete Benton. I'm the chairman of the Veterans Day Parade this year, and I'm very excited to share with you some information tonight. For those of you who don't know, our Veterans Day Parade is the longest running and the largest in the state of North Carolina. Thanks to Colonel Hank Goddard and his wife Edie, this parade's been going on for 28 years. Okay. This year, we're very blessed to have a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient for the Battle of Drang 1965. He's a personal friend of mine, Colonel Joe Marm. For those of you who don't know, when he fought in that battle, that is the battle that inspired the movie We Were Soldiers Once, starring Mel Gibson. And Joe's a very dear personal friend. He's going to be the Grand Marshal this year. Additionally, we are going to have some very special guests. For those of you who don't know, our special forces in Vietnam fought with the La Montagnards. What that means in English, they're French, is it means the mountain people. The Montagnards, they have a 25-person contingent that's coming all the way from Greensboro to our parade to participate in the parade. Additionally, we're going to have a great deal of special forces, veterans from the Vietnam War and other. As a matter of fact, there's 3,894 Vietnam veterans in Carteret County. There's 201,000 across the state. We're going to have a major commemorative 50th anniversary celebration of the end of the Vietnam War. We're already getting attention from national sources, state and local. We also have a number of other people. We had invited the United States Marine Corps Presidential Honor Guard Silent Drill Team. We almost got them, but they're booked out for the 250th anniversary of the Army and the Marine Corps. So I hope to have them next year. 2 years ago, I had my former unit, the U.S. Air Force Presidential Honor Guard Drill Team, came down from Washington. They did 14 performances for 10,000 children in Carteret and Craven County. Our goal is to continue to make this parade the biggest and the best that it can be, and we are leading the state. As a matter of fact, I've been getting phone calls from Washington, D.C., California, and there's a great deal of interest in our parade. If you'll see the budget before you, that's the second page, that delineates all the expenses and that we're going to have. We believe it's going to be in the realm of $38,000. We're going to bring the Montagnards down from Greensboro. We're going to put them up and take care of them. And we're also planning to have a huge celebration on November the 8th at the Sanitary Fish Market. We're inviting all the veterans and all of their families, and the dignitaries will be invited. Additionally, the third sheet you have is the Vietnam lapel pin. We're going to have Colonel Joe Marm, the Medal of Honor recipient, is going to present a special memento and a lapel pin to all of the Vietnam veterans. I would ask you to do this. Please publicize and get the word out about this great parade, because with each passing year it's getting bigger and bigger and even better. But it's going to be an imperative that we get the word out to all over the entire county. Do you have any questions?
Well, let's see, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Benton?
No more than thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you so much for that overview. I just have a quick question on the budget. For line 602, did you say that group, the Marine Corps Silent Drill Team, did you say they're not available or they are available?
They're booked.
Okay,
Yeah,
so is
unfortunately.
that line not going to be included in the final budget?
Correct. It will not be. That was to pay for the entire team to come down, so we're going to change that. As a matter of fact, I called the Coast Guard Honor Guard. We almost got them. But unfortunately, with this year being the 250th anniversary of the Army and the Marines, they're hanging around Washington, D.C., doing a lot of performances there.
So do you have, you said the approximate budget was 38,000, but do you have an updated budget with reflecting that change?
Yes, we will. We're working on it as we speak. This is on an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
Any other further questions?
No, we have decided we were going to be signing up to participate in the parade.
Yes, ma'am.
Beaufort will be doing that, and we are honored to be part of that. And as Commissioner Cooper said, want to thank everyone for their sacrifice for this country. And if there's any other questions that you may have?
Thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move on to the items for discussion and consideration. The first one is the Enclave at Beaufort Club. It's a developer request, and I believe we have our town planner, Kyle Garner, Director.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. The first item that you have for you this evening, a brief summary, is a request from the developer for the Enclave at the Beaufort Club. They have, and he's actually here this evening, it's Mr. Todd Sade. And a few months ago, the Board of Commissioners approved the preliminary plat for the Enclave showing 79 single-family residential units. And as part of that, there was an access road that would be provided or be connected to Cedar Avenue. And since that time, there's been some discussions or developments that the developer can speak to regarding that access with the Department of Transportation. And again, they can speak to that in their specific request to the board this evening. But beforehand, we wanted to give some information out for the public and the board on not just the Enclave subdivision, but also the development for the Beaufort Club, or as a lot of people may remember it as the North River Club. And we provided a copy of the master plan for the North River Club dating back to 2011, 2012. Our fire department actually ran a program in regards to response times to get to certain areas within the development. As of now, there are 178 homes that are existing within the development. 29 of those are available for construction. Then you have the 79 that I mentioned earlier that were part of the Enclave. So you're looking at right now at 285 total lots at build out so far. And the reason why we say so far is there still is some property that is undeveloped to the south. And we provided a aerial photo showing where the existing main entrance is and where the secondary access would be provided off of Cedar Avenue. And then this is the information that I believe that the developer would like to speak to the board on regarding the access and to Cedar Avenue after discussions with the Department of Transportation. And this is a photo showing what is existing right now. And then it may be hard to see, but then there's some red lines in this next slide that shows some deceleration and acceleration lanes that has been requested by the Department of Transportation. Yep. And at this time, Mayor, if it's all right, I'd like the developer to come up since it's their request.
Yes,
That's Mr. Sade, and he can provide additional information to the board.
thank you, Kyle.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Sade. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate your time today, Madam Mayor and fellow commissioners. You know, the Enclave is a section inside of the Beaufort Club. It's the only section right now that we're really working on as we continue to develop lots inside the Beaufort Club. The last 2 or 3 sections, Windswept and Bungalows, have done very well. So there's a market for housing out there, and this is important for us to continue with having homes for sale out there. As we have been working over this for the past year, the Enclave is 79 lots. We first came to get sewer allocation, and during those discussions of approvals, the idea of an emergency access came up. So we considered that, worked closely with Chief Ray, and designed a road for an emergency access off the end of Cedar Avenue. That's a heavily spec'd road, so it's a significant cost, but we were in agreement to do that. And during the last meeting, it was suggested that we take, it's a gravel road, and it goes between two houses, and it's controlled. So I guess the fire department would have the controls to get through there in an emergency. And it was suggested that that be open to the public. At the time, I didn't think that was a big deal, and we were willing to consider that until the engineers took it to DOT. And DOT requires this significant $1.5 million improvement on Highway 70. So my request tonight for you guys to consider is to remove that and keep it a controlled emergency access and continue to work with us. You know, our goal with this development, it was originally approved for a 1,500 lot PUD development. And we've been working and presenting ideas to cut that volume in half. Maybe it's 800 homes. We're still working on that to present to you guys. And at that time, it's our goal to create a new permanent access entry into the new section. And we think that the money spent on Highway 70 would be much better utilized for when we put in that new permanent entrance. So I just wanted to put that in front of you guys to consider. Can we remove the condition of that emergency access road being public so that we can go ahead and continue with development? It'll be another year before we can do anything more. And and then when we bring something else to you guys, show you what we think is a better plan to spend that money on Highway 70. So thank y'all for your time. Any questions?
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Saib?
A little bit. Todd, I take it the long-term plan of a different location is not available now?
It is not.
So that's land that you don't own?
We don't know. We are looking hard to try to figure out where is the best entry into the north part of this development, and willing to look at purchasing property to create that new entrance that would be much more functional, much more laid out. We just don't think Cedar Avenue is the right place. It actually, when you enter that emergency access, it comes between two homes that have already been purchased, and it's gravel road. So if it was a public, we see maintenance, gravel coming at, you get on a gravel road from Windswept over to Cedar, it just doesn't feel like it functions well for that use.
And I apologize for not being there, but Cedar exists today, correct?
Cedar does exist. It comes to the end of a cul-de-sac, and our property touches that, so we have access to it.
You'd come out and tie into that.
Yeah. Yep.
So you're saying at the present, you do not have the property available to you that you would like in terms of building a permanent road? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yeah, we're looking hard. We'd prefer to come off of 70 into, if you know where our clubhouse is, there's 200 some acres above that surrounds the golf course. Would like a new entrance to be up there off of 70 to come into the new development, which we'll be spending a lot of time together when we start talking about how to get serious on that. But there is a demand. I guess we bought this 12 years ago out of bankruptcy, and we've been the golf course is not a profitable entity, but we believe in it, and we believe it can be a really nice amenity for the town of Beaufort. So we're continuing to invest money into that. But in order for golf course communities to work, you have to have membership, and our membership is, I guess we have about 260 members, and you really need 450 members to make a golf course work profitably. Which it's a great golf course. It's a great, I don't know if y'all have been to our restaurant, but I'll put a commercial in for the Blue Heron Restaurant. We're excited about what's happening out there, and we're continuing to promote and push and look at plans to further the development out there.
So, excuse me. The red lines, is that the proposed by DOT?
Yes, sir. That's when the engineers went to DOT to make sure there were no problems. They said, well, this is what we see you would need to do if you had that a public access instead of an emergency access. So that's a lot of work, a lot of money. We'd rather plan that for the future and allocate those funds for something that will satisfy the top part of the development.
So what assurance do we have that if we gave you the time for that, you're gonna do it?
Well, I think the assurance would be, we're going to come to you with a plan, and I think it was presented earlier this year in your February meeting, more of a vision, but you're going to have control and comments on whatever we do to further develop this neighborhood and community. So obviously, we wouldn't be able to do, we can't do anything more until we come back before you guys and say, okay, here's another section, here's the bigger section. So obviously, I think you have a lot of say in how we continue to further develop this.
So you presently don't have a picture of the property, the future property you may look at to put the permanent road in?
Well, we don't have the property, but we have presented, what was it in February, the commissioners retreat? We presented a global plan of what we'd like to do, and we can certainly redistribute that to you guys so you can see, because I'm going to need your help. Once we get past this enclave, so the enclave is 79 lots. It'll take a year or two maybe to build this out. In the meantime, we need to get going on what is the next step. So I'm going to be in front of you guys and need your help to figure out how we properly do that. But we don't have any property that would allow us to tie into the community at this point. I also am not sure that the original PUD did not have any other access points, which had 1,500 lots. So that's all in the past. We're going to go forward, and we're going to work with you guys to make Beaufort Club a really nice place. But the request today would be, we can't move forward with the economics don't work. The $320,000 is what the road costs for the emergency access. It's a very, very, it's a heavy-duty gravel road, and that's a pretty big hit to the 79 lot.
Commissioner Spiegler, you have a question?
Thank you. So if you could just clarify, because I think I'm getting confused. So what we proposed and what we all agreed on at our last meeting together was that we were going to turn this Cedar Avenue into a regular second entrance.
Yeah, the gravel,
Right.
the
But
gravel
now what you're
road from Cedar to Windswept
Right.
was planned to be an emergency access.
Well, but I thought last time we agreed it was going to be a regular road, and now you're saying you want to make it just an emergency access, not a regular road, correct? Am I understanding that?
No, we had never planned for it to be a regular road. In all of our discussions with planning and everything, the request was made to, hey, can you guys think about putting an emergency access in there? And we said, we agreed to it, we planned it, and that's what we brought to the table.
So
And
you're saying now this secondary access, you don't want to put it in at all, even for emergency purposes, or you are going to put it in for emergency purposes? I think I'm confused.
We have agreed to put this emergency access in.
But not, it would only be open to an emergency vehicle.
That is correct.
So you're looking to put a second entrance in somewhere farther up north eventually when you find a property?
That is
So there
correct.
would never be a second entrance in the southern part of the development?
That is correct.
Once you find that second entrance up north, whenever that happens, would you close the secondary access completely and it would not be available for emergency vehicles, or would it always be available for emergency vehicles?
I don't know why it wouldn't always be available for an emergency. I mean, we don't plan to go and close that down.
I think what concerns me is, this is a large development. For safety reasons, convenience, traffic, we would think that a secondary access is needed on the southern part. While it'd be great to have another access point in the north, I think part of the reason we asked was to space them out so that there was that access point to the south. And I agree the former commissioners did not require that, but we want to make sure, like you said, that this is the best development possible, and also that public safety is, the first concern as well with that many houses in the development.
Right.
So I'm concerned that we're not following through on that. When I thought last time we talked about making this a regular road, but did we say in the short term it would just be emergency access?
So, can I speak?
Good. Yes.
So my understanding of this, obviously, is when the PUD was accepted, Kyle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and the town went ahead with this PUD, it was one main access to the property. I believe that according to fire, no?
That is not correct. There was another access to Highway 101.
101, okay.
Shown on your master plan.
Okay.
From what I also understand is, according to fire rules and regulations, once we hit a certain number of rooftops in that development, that automatically triggered the fire access or emergency access to be built. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe the fire chief can attest, and also the fire marshal, I believe it's 100 units,
100 units.
100 rooftops.
So it's not just an agreement or a, okay, that we're doing that. This is a required thing, I would imagine, by the state. Is that correct? Who requires that? The state? Or state fire code?
Fire marshal, anybody? You want to come on up? This is what you get for coming to meetings.
So, my name's John Pender. I'm the fire marshal here in Beaufort. Yeah, per Chapter 5 of the Fire Code, North Carolina Fire Code, developments of 1 and 2 family dwellings where the number of dwelling units exceed 100, rooftops shall be provided with 2 separate and approved fire apparatus access roads.
Can you put the microphone closer to your mouth, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So access roads shall be separated by 1/2 of the overall diagonal distance of the property. So that's another, obviously, requirement by the fire code, but it's all in Chapter 5 of the 2018 North Carolina Fire Code. So that's where it actually comes from.
So this present road, does it meet that requirement?
Yeah, I mean, based on the proposal that we have for this secondary access, yes, as long as, and like I said, all I can speak on is the emergency access, as far as the public access, I wasn't involved in that, but like I said, based on the fire code, it does call for that to be a required, access point. And that's mainly, obviously, if you have some incident at the main entrance and you're blocked there, we don't have access to those other homes.
And that's where my concern. Before moving to this glorious and beautiful town of Beaufort, I lived in a community that had only one way in and one way out.
Yes, sir.
And that for that particular reason, if there's an emergency at that entrance or out near that, you're stuck.
That's right.
And no emergency vehicles can get in. And if you're having one, so I'm always concerned about moving into any community that only has one way in and one way out. That concerns me.
Yes, sir.
So I see it in terms of, and I know it's dollars, and it's always dollars, but I think that community deserves a second road. There's no doubt about it. $1 million, what's $1 million towards a life? You can't put an amount on it.
I understand.
I know you're the fire marshal. I know it's more directed at that man behind you. For him to understand what I'm saying is the gentleman behind you is that the dollars and cents cannot be any amount towards a human life, and it could happen. I mean, the development I was in, one way in, one way out, and they had a couple of emergencies. Did not look well. The outcome was not great.
Yes, please.
I want to be the devil advocates here, and this is not for you, sorry, this is for Mr. Say, probably, and the
Thank
rest
you.
of the commissioners, is I lived, right across the street from Cedar Street growing up for 20 years. And starting at Cedar Street and going towards Taylor's and around that curve, so many people have died on that curve. It is very dangerous. I had a high school classmate die on that curve. So although I want a secondary access somewhere. I'm not sure I want it there. And I understand why DOT is asking for those red lines on the map, because it is a dangerous, dangerous place right there. And you've got, you know, the Taylors there now and people speeding around that curve. And I wish the second access could be somewhere else in the future, because Cedar Ave is not the ideal place for it. Maybe for fire trucks, but for traffic that's cycling through all the time, I think it could be a really dangerous spot. And it's just because I know the spot really well.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I
I
don't
probably
know it.
wouldn't have a comment about it.
Can I ask a question of Kyle? So you said the original PUD had the 2 entrances, and the 101 entrance is no longer on the table. Has that gone away, and why has that gone away? I know that was originally a construction entrance, but I understand Mr. Said was not part of that as he purchased the property after maybe that went away.
Right. And neither was I.
And neither were you.
For that matter.
Okay.
Yes, sir. This was actually part of the development agreement that goes back to 2002, 2003. And I know people find it hard to believe. They think I've been here forever now. But going back in that point in time when the original developers had it, which they believed that they had an agreement with Mr. Taylor. And at that time they may, and that was Mr. Harry Taylor. And unfortunately, Mr. Taylor is no longer here. And the developers who did this original plan also walked away with a bond. I know the mayor is aware of this. They skipped out of town on a bond, and the infrastructure did not go in for a lot of these lots. So the town was held with that. Mr. Sade's group did come in and put in that infrastructure, and actually, if I'm not mistaken, bought back every single lot on Windswept that was previously purchased from other groups because it was no value to them without the infrastructure. So I would say that right now, even though this master plan shows the access to 101, it is not viable, which is why when in October of last year, when the enclave came to the town staff, we said, well, there's got to be at least some point of emergency access to get to folks. And the board agreed with that. We fast forward to when the preliminary plat comes in, and then there's somewhat of a change where it was a recommendation to turn that into full access. To go back with what Ms. Gillikin said, it can be a fairly dangerous curve and intersection. And then, of course, the developer coming back today requesting that it go back to the original request of an emergency access to fire standards.
Commissioner Oliver, do you have a question?
Todd, one question. The fire marshal mentioned this difficulty in making sure that 2 entrances are separated. For the permanent, long-term, full entrance that you're trying to accomplish, does it meet that test that the fire marshal talked about in having it being adequately separated within the development?
Are you saying that should we build a new
Let
permanent?
me ask my question again. The fire marshal mentioned that in addition to having 2 entrances, they obviously didn't want them too close. They wanted to have something separated across the entirety of your development.
Right.
Does your hope of the new long-term entrance, which would eliminate the necessity for this fire entrance, does your future plan address the fire marshal's concern, in your opinion?
In other words, if there wasn't an emergency access, would the additional new entry
Be
satisfy?
adequately separated so that the fire marshal would say that meets the test of being far enough apart?
I would think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's an important thing to me.
Right.
Because what really comes down to here is whether we're going to accept this as a public access or solely a fire access.
That's correct.
And I think you have gotten a pretty good idea. I won't be here, so you don't have to look at me, but I think you've gotten a pretty good idea that you're probably not going to get a whole lot more lots approved without solving the permanent access.
I think we pretty much understand that.
You understand? Okay, we're
Yeah.
together on that.
Based on trying to get this.
Yeah, I won't be here, but you will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I look at it like, At least this, if we move forward with this, at least we do have an emergency access. If we don't get this condition approved, then I don't know how long it's gonna be before we develop lots, because we got a lot of work to do. So,
Commissioner Cooper?
Where are the other areas that you're looking at in terms of developing? Well, let me put it this way, first of all. The other property that you might be seeking to develop, does it include that land that you're speaking of and putting that second road in?
it would include the addition, we have to find some land off of 70 or 101 to purchase to get another access here. So in order to develop north of the clubhouse, we've got to bring it in on 70 or 101, more likely 70 because of the opportunity to purchase some property to do that.
So are you actively seeking to trying to do that
Yes,
now?
sir. Yeah. We're trying to find 2 or 3 different places that we can purchase to do that.
Okay.
Can I add
Yes.
one more thing? Just trying to consider, like, to increase the effectiveness of Cedar Ave, if it's only to be, a fire road. If there is some emergency in a hurricane or something where residents have a little bit of time, if the fire truck goes down Cedar Ave, can it open that gate and direct people out of there and use it as a very temporary emergency exit if residents happen to get stuck in that part of the community? They could, okay. So I wanted to know if that could happen. That makes me feel a little better. And I realize I agreed for Cedar Avenue or recommended it to be a second entrance, but driving by there recently and seeing what DOT did just reminds me how dangerous it is. So I wanted to point that out.
Now, is that something that can be codified and added to the request? That it's asked to be an emergency use only, but as Commissioner Gillikin had just stated, an emergency could be evacuation.
That's going to ultimately be up to the town through the fire chief and the fire marshal, so I think we have absolute control over that.
Okay, and it doesn't have to be
It
written?
does not need to be a condition, no, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Just
Yeah,
wanted-
I think the other concern too, looking at the site plan, is even the roads in in the subdivision where the access point would come in. I think that's really not meant to be a main thoroughfare either. If you look at the main access point off of Taylorwood, off of 70 across, off of 70 there, it's a 2-lane, it's pretty wide. It accommodates quite a deal of traffic. I know there's signs across there for people to slow down. I can only imagine what the narrower road would be on windswept with people coming in and out of there, so.
It's pretty tight.
It is pretty tight. So,
But it does allow for fire trucks.
for
to
fire
go.
truck, right,
Yeah.
right. I think the importance here is for access, for response times, for the fire department to be able to access the homes in that area, because coming from the northern main access point, there'd be quite a bit of delay at this point. So I think as soon as possible, if we can get that access point put together, it'd really be beneficial to the community.
So the developer is requesting us to amend to allow for Cedar Street Avenue access to be used as an emergency use only and not for public use, which is what the ask is right now. But I think coming back to Commissioner Cooper's request too, is how we want to be able to know that you are looking actively for that secondary entrance and exit to 70, and want to be able to know that that's coming sooner versus later. And how can we actually,
Frankly, I think they're more incented.
well, I know they're incentivized, but,
They're gonna have approval for 285 units, and they're trying to build 800. I don't think they're gonna come back and see y'all and ask for more than 285 until the road situation is done.
I
okay.
agree.
That's right.
All right,
Yeah,
so
they
that will
won't.
be,
I think you've got the controls.
outside, all right.
We understand that there's going to need to be, we've heard second access for several years.
But your successor might not remember that, Todd, so we,
I get it.
Well, just want to make sure, it's moving forward, this conversation that we've had. So if for whatever reason another developer happens to take over, we want to know that's still in place. So unless there's any further questions, the developer once again is requesting us to amend the agreement to allow for Cedar Avenue to be accessed as emergency only and not public. So what is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to amend the approval such that the access road to be built will be for emergency access only.
Okay. Thank you. You've got a motion on the floor. You've got a question?
Question. Can we assure to make sure that in his proposal that we put in terms of for emergency? Oh, no, you said we didn't do that, right?
I said,
Yeah, no, we didn't have to do.
emergency.
We don't have
Yeah.
to do that, okay,
Right.
all right.
Okay.
I'm
Any
good.
further questions?
Can we, or would it be appropriate to add something that says this one will not be closed until another one that meets the codes is constructed? Because I think that's the question too. We don't want this one to be closed in the future because there's another entrance up north that doesn't meet the standards.
I don't think the developer would have the ability to close it unilaterally. We could add that to the motion for clarity, but I don't think the developer would have that ability just as a matter of course. So if you wanted to add it to the motion, I think that would be.
Which I'm glad to do.
Okay. All right, so we've had the update to the motion to make sure that access is not going to be closed. Okay? Now we've got a cleaned up motion. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed have the same right. Thank you, Mr. Sade.
Thank y'all very much.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to the CIP approval. We've got Mr. Matt Zapp on deck to talk about that. Whichever you feel most comfortable.
Thank you.
And this is capital improvement plan for those who are tuning in.
Thank you all. We are working through an attempt to provide a very high-level 100,000-foot revised capital improvement plan. Before each of the elected officials, you should have 4 distinct documents. They are color-coded, and your first document should be a lighter green. Your second page should be more of a dark purple. The jury's still out as to the third page color. I think the highest votes are now referring to it as salmon. And then the final fourth page is a lighter blue.
Oh, nursery color.
Yes. So what we wanted to do was to briefly discuss the importance of the capital improvement projects, what we are trying to accomplish, and then what the next steps would be. So these are the documents that I hope you've received electronically in advance of today. What we did is we took the last approved capital improvement plan, advanced the years to begin with fiscal year 26. Inside of fiscal year 26, we allocated for what a majority of the projects either have been budgeted or are anticipated. But on your green sheet, I'd like to highlight to you that there is a deficiency of $2.3 million pertinent to USDA full pave width funding. And I want to start with that if you don't mind. So,
Okay.
the current projects for the USDA water, sewer, stormwater have a gross amount of roadways within Beaufort currently under construction. If you want, we could look out the window to Broad. We have a lot of work that needs to be done. With those USDA projects, we did get authorization that when greater than 50% of a roadway has been disturbed due to the construction of A, B, and C, which is stormwater, water, and sewer, you can use your funding to do full edge-to-edge roadway repair and replacement. It's only when a street is greater than 50% damaged. If you have multiple patches through a street and less than 50% of the roadway has been disturbed, distorted, or damaged, I want to stress to the audience and to the board, there'll be only patches put back. So in all the construction across the community in the USDA project zones, they are intended to be patched, not full edge-to-edge replacement. From my professional perspective, I think that you're going to get a lot of encouragement to do edge-to-edge replacement. And so what we did is we went back through the projects, we identified only the zones that have greater than 50% roadway damage or will have greater than 50% roadway damage. If we do asphalt edge to edge, curb to curb, which means grind out, remove, and repair the stone in the basin and put new asphalt back in, just to do the sections that are allowable, which are not 100% of the areas that are currently under construction, there's still a shortfall of $2.3 million. That would have to be provided locally by the town of Beaufort somehow, whether we use fund balance, current taxes, elevate, however you want to utilize. We have a deficiency of $2.3 million that's not funded in this current fiscal cycle. So I want to start with that. Most everything else, whether you're on any of the 4 sheets, would already be items that you've identified to fund and remove or fund and replace. So, for example, if you look down the UDO project, the update to the process, that's already funded in your current fiscal year budget that sunsets on June 30th. On your green sheet, the other item is the $364,000 local match, which would be needed to move the Ann Street project on, in addition to our $120,000 grant. Those are going to be items that you'll see consistently through all 4 pages. If it's in our current budget, we try to capture it as accurately as possible in the line that reads fiscal year 26. Everything from fiscal year 27 going out are estimates and or assumptions that were made based on previous board meetings, previous retreats, and or previous capital improvement projects. If we shifted or moved something, it was, for example, there was generators in fiscal year 27, we would remove those generators because we found funding in fiscal year 26 to put those in. So if you're comparing previous cap plans to the current cap plan, there are going to be some items deleted. But those are only items that are traditionally already funded. So the green sheet is for your general fund. Are there any questions on the green sheet pertinent to the capital improvement plan?
One quick one. In 27, the $6,375,000, that's the same $6.4 million that we're talking about, where we're increasing our debt, correct?
No, that's a great question. So Commissioner Oliver is asking, in fiscal year 27, you're showing in another $6 million. That's actually just a need in street paving. So to finish the rest of the roads that are currently torn up, if you would like to edge and do additional paving, that would be an additional $6 million that's currently unfunded for roadway repair, replacement.
That's not the 6.4.
That is correct. That is not the deficit for the actual water line work that would not be completed. We're not under that assumption that we're necessarily going forward with that additional water line work yet.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. The numbers are dangerously close, so thank you for the clarification. So if you were to take the $2 million in fiscal year 26 and the $6 million in fiscal year 27, there's roughly an $8 to $10 million need for asphalt. Now, this predates me, but I believe that Greg Mashaw shared that in advance of the USDA projects, that there was an intention to try to find out and figure out how to fund all the roadway replacement. From an engineer's mindset, which is the proper approach, you want to replace the underground water, the underground sewer, and all pertinent stormwater work in advance. We were just chatting about this last week when we were completing all of our details, but my past experience tells me if you do not replace the water lines in an age system that are sometimes 50 to 70 years old, the vibration of the asphalt machine will break them. So what if you're choosing to put asphalt back on a road with an aged water line, it's not a question of if, it's a matter of when will you be back cutting into that brand new road to fix the water line that's underneath. So there's been a very slow and methodical approach in Beaufort, which I applaud, of trying to put all the projects together, coordinate the projects to save as much money as possible. We're now to the hard part. I've been waiting to use this turn of phrase, where the rubber meets the road, which we don't have. And so we're trying to figure out how to pace ourselves. We do want to stress, though, if we're going to do the edge-to-edge paving in the next 6 to 9 months, there will be an immediate need for an additional $2 million. So what you see is farthest left on each of the columns, you're going to see the department that is elevating the need. If there's a defined funding source, it's identified. Then there's the item by description. Then as you carry this out, there's the following fiscal years. And we're trying to put together a very clear outlook for the next 5 years and as clear as possible look for a 10-year period. And there are items that would exceed the 10-year mark that are between 0 and 20 years, and they would land on the column that currently reads under the word beyond. So if it's greater than 10 years out, we have it listed as beyond. For the audience's sake, what we're trying to do tonight is, if we can get the clarity to pass what's being presented, it's extremely critical for us in all of our grant paperwork, and we have another grant deadline of October 6th that current engineer Bell and I are trying to assemble. You'll lose quality points in majority of these grant processes if we don't have a capital improvements plan in place. We understand that there's a lot of major asks that you've been wrestling with here. We will want to refine this as much time as you want to spend in January at the next council retreat with the brand-new elected board. But what we're trying to do today is to officially move this conversation out so we can get the 20 to 30 quality points on any application that we would try to apply for between today and the start of the year.
And the applications that you are seeking to apply for, they are within the CIP?
Yes, ma'am. So
Okay.
specifically.
So grants that we're looking for?
Yes,
within
ma'am.
that-
The hazard mitigation grant program, we have a first deadline of the first week of October, where this would be critical, and we could say, yes, we have it, here's a submission, here's a link to our website.
Right.
And then today, we even received back, and Sam's in the audience, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but we had applied for loan funding for Pump Station 7 and got a denial email back today that we are missing certain criteria, so we're trying to schedule a phone call to find out what we missed in our applications process. For those of you that have done them, I'd like to give grace where grace is due. They're not easy, and there's multiple, and sometimes tens, if not hundreds of pages that you're filling out. So we want to make sure that we position the community in the best possible spot to receive the awards. We've been ultra successful, but this is a critical component.
Okay.
But yes, ma'am, for funded projects.
Are we through with that page? Any questions for the general funds? Okay.
The
let's-
next page you should have is a newer page, and what we tried to do is capture what we consider to be waterfront-related costs or projects. So we know that we're in the position, we've received a $1.2 million check. We have deposited that in an interest-bearing account specific to the future fuel farm, which construction is scheduled to begin in first quarter or January of 2026. We know that we have a debt payment on that. We see that first debt payment would be in 26, and then it carries out the 5-year period to pay for that loan. And then where it's saying funding source annual, that means that fuel sales would derive enough benefit to pay that note. Below it, these are just harbor management conversations that we have for the police department, fire department, things that we're working on within their budgets that are currently allocated right now under general fund that are applicable. So there's fuel for boats, maintenance of just different items. So like, for example, the second item down, the $12,000 is an annual cost that we estimate for derelict vessels that we're using to remove those. And all of that can be part of the harbor maintenance. And then you even get down to dredging costs, and you'll see where our dredging, we know that this year our local contribution is $112,500. We estimate out, then we assume that's probably going to go up by a few percent, so you'll see where there's the estimate, which is going to capture, hopefully, a relatively accurate number.
Okay.
And then in fiscal year 27, we show a $3,850,000 improvement in the anticipation that we're going to rate this grant so specific and so fantastic that it'll be fully funded.
gonna be work.
But if that is not funded, where it says grant/unknown, that would then, thus you could shift it annually until the funding is made available. And in that $3.8 million grant that we're working towards would be the increase of the 18 inches on the seawall bulkhead, replacement of all the infrastructure directly above it that would be negatively impacted. So that's where we currently are, is trying to get an accurate number there to apply for the grant by October on the preliminary phase. Then there's a November deadline, then a December deadline. So if you see a light on early or a light on late at Town Hall, one of our team members or all of us are still working on these grant deadlines. But that's what we're working on. So that's the second capital improvements page.
Question.
Sure.
On the bulkhead, with the BWAP, two representatives, I was under the impression in their meeting, or maybe, I don't know what conversation, but that the bulkhead, maybe we had some time on that? Did we have some time on that? Past fiscal year 27?
For the application, you mean? Or the time to do the work? I'm not
Time
understanding.
Time to do the work, yeah.
I maybe can answer that. I think the docks have some time left, but the actual cap for the top of the boardwalk, I think that has to be done sooner rather than later. Is that correct?
So it's a resiliency improvement.
It's a resilience improvement, and that's also what we're applying for. We have a pretty, we've been encouraged to apply to the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program for that cap. So we won't, of course, we won't know if we get that money, but if we do, we would go ahead and do that as soon as possible.
Yeah, that was the project, Commissioner Cooper, where we were trying to apply for BRIC, and then they came back and highly suggested us to go to this program because BRIC was not going to get funded. So the fact that we got invited to that, we may not have another opportunity like that, and that cap needs addressing now. So I think the timing is lining up pretty well on that if we were to get those grant funds.
Okay.
I think the simplest way to answer it is it's an absolute critical and immediate need. As soon as a funding source is identified, we would come forward to perform construction. So we're applying in multiple places.
It's pretty simple. If you got the money, that's where you're gonna spend it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't have the money.
Any further questions for the waterfront capital projects? Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Your third page, or the light pink salmon.
Are we gonna go back and make comments on these, or are we doing them as we go, just so
We can always go back and review.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So under the third page, which would be stormwater fund, want to stress that there's a definitive dollar amount that's coming in annually, right at that $180,000 figure. The first $118,000 of that 180 is already committed to paying a USDA debt, so you can't do anything with that money, it's already locked out. That leaves you a balance, or discretionarily, approximately $60,000 to $62,000 a year. Goes without saying that that is probably not sufficient enough revenue to do all the things that you would like to do. And here's just a list of some of the immediate needs throughout the community. We've also want to slow down and take an opportunity to tell you that we had applied and received funding from Carteret County months ago of approximately $535,000. Those dollars were applied for and were going to be directed to improvements that would help not reduce the immediate flooding of Meeting Street, but would help reduce the length of which water would stand there, because there was options for under $500,000 to help move that water. Unfortunately, the news that I get to share today is that would have required an easement on DOT property that would have negatively impacted their other existing infrastructure. So fencing and sound barrier walls and all sorts of items. So at this point, we were not able to move the $535,000 project at Meeting Street, so we're meeting again on Wednesday to discuss future options with that money. And there's a bevy of other areas where we're shortfall in stormwater. So we understood that Meeting Street was the highest priority, but unfortunately, this small amount of grant will not be able to be utilized due to restrictions with DOT, and they've worked with us extremely well, so there's no workaround. The other choice is to redirect this $500,000 back towards portions of the USDA stormwater project that were cut out due to a lack of funding. So we already have, if you will, shovel-ready choices within the existing USDA stormwater project. That's what we're looking at on Wednesday. Is trying to determine the best way that we can utilize these funds, because these funds have to be spent, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, between today and June 30th.
And what encroachment are we on the state property?
So where the ditch would need to be widened, and there's not enough room to widen the ditch to appropriately allow the water out. Because we were trying to get the water out of Professional Park over to the retention pond on the Simpson property.
Right.
There's no
Behind
safe
that
way to
sound
move
wall
it there.
That's on the highway.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we would be negatively getting too tight to their wall.
To their wall.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we tried to look at every option possible.
Well, I hate to redirect that money somewhere else, but.
So you'll see in stormwater, there's obviously greater need than the anticipated funding. And then lastly, if you'll go to the fourth page, which is your lighter blue, that's your water and sewer lines, wastewater treatment plant, water treatment facilities, all associated pump stations. And there's a lot of extremely critical and high dollar needs in the system. Much of it is being compressed into the first and second fiscal year, so 27, as you look out 27 to 28, have very large needs, and you're either going to have to divert those improvements or look for alternative ways to fund them.
Or raise rates.
Or raise rates. Wanted to share with the board that the North Carolina Rural Water Authority was here on Friday morning early, provided us a template to complete our first utility rate analysis. Those of us that really like numbers couldn't wait till Monday. 2 of us in the room were probably already working on it all weekend, but we were working on it again this morning. So we're looking at the total number of customers, the percentage of the customer base at 0 up to 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, those that use upwards of 300,000 gallons a month, and trying to determine a fair and equitable way to keep the rates as low as possible throughout the community. So all of that will be impacted by this sheet. So there will be much more conversation spent by the board as to what are the critical and must-have improvements versus what can be delayed, because the more improvements that you want to attack early, there will be a necessity to consider rate analysis. And I'm not saying raise rates, I'm just saying that you're going to have to figure out, we as the collective will have to figure out how are we going to attack it, when are we going to attack it, and then how will it be funded.
Any questions on that page?
The $1.6 million that you've got on placement of number 7, remind me what that is.
So that's a great question. The $1,600,000 that you'll see in fiscal year 26 corresponds to the sewer pump or lift station number 7. There's currently $985,000 dedicated to that project in capital reserve. That project had initially been identified as $1 million project, but due to the cost since it was designed, has escalated as high as $3 million. So that's the grant application that Sam had put in for funding between the $1 million and the $3 million. So we applied for, if I'm not mistaken, Sam, upwards of $2 million in a loan, and it didn't pencil out. So we're trying to find other choices. We also went out to the local market and tried to get cost estimates as accurately as possible. So we're hopeful that it's not a $3 million repair, that it may fall into a $1.6 million to $2 million repair based on if we go out to bid. So we have the final designs and drawings ready to go, and we're 30 to 60 days out from bidding this project to get an accurate number. If this comes back at what the estimate was, which would be 1.5 to 1.6, we may be able to take our cash reserves that we have on hand and mate that with fund balance, do a budget amendment, and execute, because we know that lift station number 7 is a critical asset that needs replaced. And today's negative news about the option for a loan coming back was not a good answer either. So, and that was just one funding source. So we're looking at all the low interest, 0 interest, 0% loans that are available to us. And so we're going to keep working as hard as we can to find additional funding. But to answer Commissioner Oliver's question, You have roughly $985,000 on hand. If this project comes in at 1.6, there would be a $600,000 need of using local funds.
Utility funds.
Yes, sir, the cash reserves that would be in utilities, correct. If I'm not mistaken, we have plus or minus rate, a little less than $5 million there.
Where's utility funds?
But the head nod in the back confirms, yes, that is correct. So that would be fund balance on the utility side. And then the 125 for SCADA upgrades is a currently budgeted item that's being executed. Donovan and his team are working to make sure those improvements are already there. And then you'll see there's rehabilitations to lift stations and pump stations 6, 5, 2, 3, and 8 in the immediacy. And as we discussed at the last official board meeting, the age of some of these units getting pretty lengthy. So we've made repairs, replaced the pumps that are inside of them, but now these are requiring other replacements or rehabilitation. Is that an accurate assessment, Sam? Did I grab it right? Any other questions on the capital and projects? Blue page?
Down here? Looks like there's none, unless you have a, Commissioner LaPiccolo? No? All right, so before we start, deliberating over this, do we have any further questions that kind of,
No, on the green sheet, we do have, I think we at least should remember that on the 26th problem with street paving, that $1.5 million of that money drove to 611 Front Street. And I still believe that 611 Front Street is worth more than that money. So I just make a note that I think frankly, a large percentage of that could probably be addressed there, just as a memory for those of us here. As you say, the $8.7 million total of that and the part that comes next year is a whole nother opportunity. On the, what color do you call this, purple?
We think it's close to purple.
yeah, I
Okay,
think it's
on the
purple.
purple, when you all get into next year's budget, I would just encourage you to really take a look at the value add for water operations for both the police department and the fire department. I think that may be something that you should at least study. It's a lot of money. God knows we live on the water. I'm not going away from that, but those operations are by this sheet expensive, and both the operations and the boats and engines and everything else. It's not. I would just, as you get into next year's budget, I would just at least think about that. On the, what'd you call it? Tan sheet?
We went with
Beige, sand. Sand is the one you looked at.
Page 3.
I think, again, the effort of getting the 535 grant, the USDA, the $180,000, and the other things that are going on in discussion with solutions out there, I think you'll be able to solve those problems in this time frame. But I'm well aware of the attention and the time it's going to take to get that done. And the Carolina Blue page is going to be staring you in the face with rates 26 and 27. That's my hunch.
26, 27 across the board seems to be.
I'm sorry, John?
26, 27 across the board is.
Well,
quite a-
the difference in the blue one is the only avenue that I think you have available is rates.
Right.
We're about borrowed out from a debt service level, so unfortunately, we're gonna have to, I think you're gonna have to look at rates as a solution for the utility fund. So those are my perceptions of what you think. As you know, I'm glad to see the longer planning. I mean, it's coming. This is where we need to be, is looking at this and figuring out what's coming at us, because it's got light. You can see the lights on the head, on the front.
Yeah. And Matt, I know I'd sent the Moffett and Nichols review for the waterfront, because it seemed to be a 5-year lifespan on the waterfront, and it recommended improvements along the way, which possibly the current operator has been performing, but we don't know currently the assessment of the pilings and the need out there. And I guess that probably will be need to be assessed again in the future, I would imagine.
So we took an active step, and we're updating all of those numbers with Moffett and Nickel, and their goal is to have us an updated set of numbers prior to, well, they're trying to shoot for October the 3rd, which is very tight. They're updating with 2025, 2026 dollars into that pro forma, so that when we ask for money, we'll be asking for the proper amount. We want to make sure that our estimate of 3.85 million is accurate.
Right.
Are we under? Because if we're under, we need to make sure we have justified documentation. So Sam and I and Christy worked on that last week, and we'll get that new data set, which will be date and time stamped October 2025. We'll have that as a supplemental piece. We'll have our new, hopefully improved cap plan as a supplemental piece. And then, as you've indicated, and Dr. LaPiccolo is saying that we would then take and chunk those items into that cap plan for the waterfront.
Tie that into your budget amendment.
So there's just so many moving pieces.
Yep.
We appreciate the extra sets of eyes, because if we missed something or if there was a typographical error, we have been scrubbing all of our data. So.
Well, if there's any further questions, the staff is looking for approval of this CIP. Just recognizing the fact that this is a work in progress, but they have identified things that are of a priority and are listing things on here in which they'll need to have in an approved CIP in order to apply for grant funding, which is some of the things that we're going to need to have that option to do. So unless there's any further questions, what is the consideration for the CIP that's been presented in front of you?
I move that we accept the capital improvement plan as presented.
Okay. We've got a motion on the floor. Any questions to that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Thank you. Now the long-awaited topic. All right, so we're going to move on to the draft LDO amendment. That's accessory mobile vending space with special use permit, and we've got Michelle that's going to be talking about that.
Good evening, Commissioners. I know we've had a lot of heavy items tonight, so I do want to give credit to everything that we're discussing, so I'm going to go through kind of in depth. It is a little bit complex, but we can work through it. Purpose of my presentation today is to review the second phase of regulation changes regarding itinerant merchants or mobile vending. Earlier this year, the board amended the existing Code of Ordinances, Chapter 113, on itinerant merchants as a short-term solution to these surfacing issues. A long-term solution was proposed during those initial discussions to add mobile vending to the Land Development Ordinance, the LDO, to better regulate these uses. Staff proposes this first draft of LDO amendments to respond to this request, which have been reviewed and edited by the town attorney. The amendments span sections 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 20, which I'll review further during the presentation. Following discussion and input from the board today, the proposed review process for these staff-initiated amendments would include review and recommendation by the Planning Board in October and a public hearing and determination by the Commissioners in November. As you can see, this timeline is independent from the work to create the Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO, and is actually pretty well timed to be integrated during the Module 2, which will address zoning districts and uses early next year. This timeline can be carried forward if considerable changes need to be made and discussed, but the board may be asked to consider extension of that one temporary waiver that sunsets on December 31st. So that's kind of the timing piece that we're looking at. Before I review the currently proposed amendments, I do want to discuss further why amendments were not pursued last December when we were having this discussion. I defer to Ari on all this. I'm just kind of summarizing. A pending court case between food truck owners and the city of Jacksonville has been moving for the past couple of years, It has several points that are similar to the regulations that we were discussing at that time, so we shelved our efforts to see how Jacksonville played out. Beaufort needs to move forward at this point, but in order to stay out of the potential fray of the case, staff has kept the sticking points of this case in mind, which come from older case law and planning and zoning. If you have similarly situated uses, they need to be regulated similarly, and if they're different, then the differing regulation generally needs to be related to the difference. So we don't want to treat an ice cream shop differently than a frozen yogurt shop if they're similarly situated, unless there's something about frozen yogurt that really changes that situation. And we don't want to use a regulatory tool for one situation if it's not being used for other similar situations. For example, if we don't require distances between competing similar businesses, it may be tricky to justify doing that now without good reason for the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. Now that I've done my spiel regarding the Jacksonville case, I'll dive into the sections that are proposed to be amended. Section 4 proposes a new definition that aligns more with mobile vending from a land use standpoint rather than the itinerant merchant from a tax license standpoint, as was found in Chapter 113. Exclusions to the definition are largely carried forward from our current Chapter 113, as well as Sub 5, a clarifying item proposed in the 2024 discussions. Mobile vending spaces are what we're looking at here as far as the use is concerned. We're not proposing a permitting program for each individual food truck or produce stand. We're proposing to regulate the use of land to host food trucks and address the impacts of the use regardless of the user. And I've likened it to a VCR versus VHS tapes. Anything meeting the definition and not falling under an exclusion would be allowed as an accessory use pursuant to a special use permit. They're not proposed to be allowed as a principal use of the main use or allowed by right, so they'll always be secondary to an established use on the property and always require the board's quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing to prove compliance with required findings and requirements. We're proposing a limited specific zoning district, so that is transition, Cedar Street mixed use, historic business district, general business, business waterfront, light industrial, and industrial warehouse. They are not proposed to be allowed in residential districts, PUD or TCA, which are largely residential in nature, not the historic waterfront business district or an overlay or conservation district. I've provided the town zoning map as well as a map showing the proposed districts to allow this special use. So this just shows the areas in town that we're looking at currently. In the LDO, a special use permit application requires currently a full professionally prepared site plan in accordance with Section 18. Site plans are required for buildings of 5,000 square feet or more. So an accessory use is definitely going to fall below that threshold and have reduced requirements in a typical approval setting. As a reminder, the special use permit application is reviewed first by planning staff, then town departments and other relevant county, state, or federal agencies in a technical review committee meeting, then by the planning board for recommendations prior to being heard by the Board of Commissioners in that quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. The special use permit process allows for some discretion by the board while still following the strict guidelines of the LDO. So in proposing, we've shown reduced application requirements for accessory special uses that wouldn't have to be a engineered site plan. Now for the part you've all been waiting for, the proposed use-specific standards for accessory mobile vending spaces. Yay! There are additional application requirements listed, including specific components of the site map, written permission of the property owner, and a compliance narrative for items listed in subsection B. Subsection B sets out requirements for accessory mobile vending spaces. They are not inconsistent with other use-specific requirements for other uses. It requires that the accessory use doesn't use up space or facilities needed for the principal use, such as parking spaces or circulation area. No specific setbacks are identified here, as the needs will probably change site by site and largely be dictated. There are some state fire code requirements that they're looking at in the next code cycle, which could be next year or the year after. So this allows room to defer to those. Subsection C sets out prohibitions for the use. This carries forward some items of the discussion from last year. We did not include the generator prohibition because we don't currently prohibit similarly situated uses such as restaurants or ice cream shops from using generators. So to that effect, perhaps Romanet 1 may also be removed. Romanet 2 and 5 are general requirements for similar uses in town and are largely stated here for clarity in the application process. Romanet 4 is also a general requirement of the LDO. We regulate use of private property and specify when that can occur on public lands, like when on-street parking can count towards required parking spaces. This statement could be clarified to add, unless an encroachment agreement has been issued by the town. This is one of the benefits of using the special use permit process. If the board wants to authorize use of public land for mobile vending, an encroachment agreement can be granted by the board, which would then authorize the grantee to apply for a special use permit for the encroachment area. This removes the town from having to deal with scheduling of mobile vendors in those spaces. Romanet 3 is identified as a way to keep mobile vending the accessory use to the principal use and to ensure that the principal use, who's largely the keeper of the property, is on site, not in operation, while mobile vending is present in the event an emergency occurs. It also ensures that the principal use remains the principal use as measured in hours of operation, if not also gross floor area. The determination or measurement of accessory and principal uses is going to be addressed in the UDO, but this serves for this purpose for now. No distances are proposed between the uses, as discussed last year. We don't require distances between other similar uses, so we're not proposing to use that here. The only instance that the LDO requires a distance between uses is between an adult establishment and a church, school, or residentially zoned properties. Other jurisdictions do require distances for mobile vending, between mobile vending and other uses, but it may be arbitrary for Beaufort to copy that at this point. So we're back at the beginning of the presentation of the first draft of proposed amendments to regulate mobile vending through the LDO. Are there any questions for staff at this time?
Great job, I must admit. There was a lot of work put into that, so great job. Any questions? Commissioner Gilligan.
Michelle, great job, thank you. I got a little bit lost on the encroachment agreement piece. Can we go back to that?
Yes, and this is one of the reasons that we proposed using a special use permit. Based on 160D, you have to be authorized to ask for permission to develop on land, and that can be as a property owner, as a tenant, something like that. So in order to even ask for a special use permit, you have to have permission, and so that encroachment agreement could act as that permission to ask for a special use permit for a specific property, and wherever that property may be. And so that's something that we've kind of pinged around, is if the board wants to authorize use of public land or public right-of-way, you can specifically choose and have an encroachment agreement separately from the special use permit. So that's kind of one of the avenues that we propose in order to move forward with that.
So the encroachment agreement could also apply to private situations where somebody doesn't own the land and approaches the landowner?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Commissioner Cooper?
Cedar Street. I think it's right after this slide here, or maybe before it, about Cedar Street.
Yes, Cedar Street mixed use is included in
Cedar
the
Street.
proposed.
And that is the use of, can I have my truck on Cedar Street?
We're not proposing use in the public right-of-way outside of an encroachment agreement issued by the board. So this would be specifically on private property, and it would be an accessory to a principal use as given a special use permit by the board.
All right, thank you.
And Michelle, sorry, but to clarify, so let's say there was a food truck on a private property as an accessory to that, so like a restaurant or something, it can only be open as long as that business is also open. And I ask that because I think that there could be, I know there is a desire to have food trucks open past 9 PM for service industry workers, if there's a bar open, but how would that work if wherever they are, if that place is not open past 9 PM?
Good
Am I
question.
saying that correctly?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So and that was just one of the proposed ways to make sure that they're being taken care of well on the property as they're using the property like a tenancy. So that could be something that we take into account, and it may be case-by-case basis. If we remove that requirement and then that hourly process is added in as a condition on the special use permit. This is just a proposed first draft, so we can still work with some of the language in here. But it was more to prevent, a property that has a principal use to kind of being taken over by that food truck or food trucks, whichever. It would end up being like used more for that food truck than it is for the retail that may be on that space. And the retail's only open a couple hours, but the food truck is there all day. And that was just one of the proposals for it.
But the retail owner would have to approve whoever was using that food truck on their private property,
Yes.
right? So we're saying that if the private property owner was in favor of it, but maybe the town would not be in favor of it. Is that the situation? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and that was just one of the proposed. We can remove that. We can clarify it in a different way. However, the board.
I'm not saying we should or shouldn't. I'm just trying to understand the intent of that. And maybe if you had an example.
Yeah, and it's more of how do you maintain something as an accessory and keep it from becoming the principal on the property if the intent is truly to keep it the accessory use. Gross floor area is kind of typically how we see it, but sometimes the intensity of the accessory use, though it is small, is larger than the intensity of the principal use, which may be bigger. In which case you want to make sure that you're addressing the more intensive use of the property rather than kind of the more gentle use of the principal.
So I don't know if this is a good example or not, but let's say the Backstreet Pub, they have a food truck sometimes on their private property there. So let's say they started not opening very often, but they let the food truck open all day, every day. Then all of a sudden the food truck is overtaking the Backstreet Pub business, and that would be...
Then that property is almost in use more as a restaurant than it is that principal use of the bar, where the food truck would be serving the bar patrons rather than, the bar patrons as an aside of the food truck.
And we would want to prevent that because we gave out the original use for the bar, not the food truck. Is that sort of where we're going?
And that's just the approach at this time, is to address these as accessory uses. There are other places that have, permitted food truck rodeos where it's almost like a food court every day with different things. So that's the principal use of the land. I don't know if we're there yet. So we're kind of starting out using these as accessory uses. And then if it's going well, we could address them as principal uses. So that's kind of just the proposed starting out.
So
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I think we may be heading down the wrong path with that. And the reason for that, I'd be curious to hear from you and even from Ari about this. But in the ruling from the Jacksonville case with the three judges that came back regarding this, there was a section in there where they talked about the fruits of their own labor clause and the law of the land clause that protects constitutional rights to earn a living from arbitrary regulations. So with that in mind, if we start regulating primary, secondary use for businesses, I think we may be going down the wrong path. If the business has a business commercial zoning and they have the right to have a business on that property, and they have a right to have a restaurant on that property, to limit that secondary use, I think would be difficult, or I think would be, it would be almost like us preventing them from earning a living.
I think that's a fair point, but it's not an arbitrary distinction when you're trying to keep it as an accessory use, in my opinion. And I think that's the intent of the regulation at this point. Certainly, you might not want to regulate in that way. The Jacksonville case is very instructive. One of the first points you have to start with is the fact that it was decided on a motion to dismiss, which means in that case, the trial court dismissed the case. It was appealed to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals said, no, plaintiffs have said enough to have their day in court. We're not going to allow the case to be dismissed. And so the case has not been finally determined yet. Some of the regulations that were looked at with skepticism may ultimately be upheld, but the three that drew particular judicial attention were, one, an excessive permit fee, which we're not charging a permit fee at all, I don't believe, in the proposal. Two would be the distance requirement from a brick and mortar business. That was one of the issues, I guess, last year when we put the brakes on things, because we were looking at that, and I think the court, the appeals court in the Jacksonville case looked very skeptically at that. So I think that's a no-go. And the last was the pretty severe restriction on signage in Jacksonville, and we don't have that in our case presently. So I think any regulation that we do in this area, you're going to hear an argument that it's against the fruits of your labor clause and some of the other constitutional clauses at issue in the Jacksonville case, but I feel pretty confident that the proposal was drafted by staff would pass muster under the case as it stands right now.
Any questions? Commissioner Oliver?
I have a few questions, and I'll apologize. Some of them are nitpicky and have to do more with style than they do anything else. First of all, I think we should stop saying accessory mobile vending space and say food truck. It's a defined term, and I think that's just a comment. And in addition, we're talking about accessory mobile vending machines, but then on section 4 under definitions, we call it mobile vending. I think all those terms should be the same, and they should all be food trucks. On our handout number 60 in definition section 4, I don't think it's very clearly written, and I find it to be kind of, I don't want to use this word, but I want to kind of it's a bit of a spaghetti salad to me. As a for instance, any person that operates on a permanent or temporary basis. I find the words on a permanent and temporary basis to be excessive words because I can't think of anything else that's either not a permanent or temporary basis. So frankly, that sentence would read better to me, any person that operates in an outdoor setting. Again, it's nitpicky, but I just find its wordiness, and I happen to be one who appreciates fewer words, especially when the words that are used don't seem to add anything to it. In the same sentence, it says, in an outdoor setting on the premises of a different established fixed business. Does that mean that they're owned differently? Does that mean that they're located differently? What are you trying to say in the words, a different established fixed business? I don't understand what that means. On number 2, I have some of the same problem. Any person selling used household furnishings and used personal property owned by a person, not a company, but at a yard sale being conducted on residentially zoned property by a person or in which the person is participating. What does that mean?
Fancy way of saying yard sale on your own property.
I can't hear you.
Fancy way of saying yard sale on your own property, but that's just carried forward language from our existing chapter 13.
Well, this is the first time I've read it, so I'm sorry that I find it to be confusing. When you go to the individual sections, for instance, go to page 62, it's my understanding of this, that's basically residential, and you're not doing anything in any residential zoning.
Correct.
Okay. Then you go to number 8, which is the multiple zoning things. If you could go to page 74 of the exhibit, you've got some blocks in there that are all yellow but don't have S in them. Does that mean the same thing, or should they have S's in them?
If the S is identified, that means it's proposed for special use permit. If there's nothing identified, it means it's not proposed. So if it's blank, it means.
Then I guess the only thing I'm suggesting is that those blocks shouldn't be colored yellow.
Okay.
The same thing occurred on page 86 of our handout, which is interesting because that's a non-residential, and we're doing 5 out of 6 of them are allowed, but the one on, and I've forgotten what that stands for.
Waterfront Business District one?
Well, it's HW.
HWBD.
Historic waterfront.
It's Waterfront Business District,
Right, I'm just wondering why that one wasn't.
yeah.
And then, on the overlay districts, are the overlay districts established now?
Yes. There are some that aren't identified in the zoning map, but they're all provided in the zoning map.
In the existing zoning map?
Yes. So, for example, there's a entry corridor district.
Right.
It's established in the ordinance, but not identified on the map. It just didn't get used.
You're on page 85.
And now I'm on page 95. And again, I just, you're not allowing any in an overlay district from my
Correct.
reading of this.
Correct.
Which usually the overlay districts are going to be largely, the underlying district is going to identify what uses are allowed in a lot of our overlay districts. And the overlay is just going to inform on dimensional standards.
But are all the overlay districts currently established in our ordinances?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question.
Yes, sir.
But those are the, so just, I just think we need to, and I know you've put a lot into this and presenting to us, I think we just need to ask each one of these questions, whether there's agreement for a food truck to be allowed. And I think we have to almost do it as a board. Before we say this is just great, I think we kind of have to read it and say, okay, why wouldn't we allow a food truck in the HWBD district? Is there a reason for that?
That was just based on discussion last year, that I didn't include it.
Okay, that's fair.
Yes, sir.
So before we sign off on it, I just think we need to ask ourselves,
And this is
do we
just a
still,
starting place.
do we still agree with
Yeah.
that? I agree with it 100%. I'm for progress too, Michelle. That's
Well-
some of the comments I had.
Okay, anybody else? We also talked about the historic business district, but in this one, on this page 86, it does allow it as a special use. Are we okay with having that as a special use in the historic business district? Is
They're
it,
often used in the historic business
yeah.
district. Back Street, Periwinkle, Fishtown, those are the places where we are seeing them used.
okay,
That's not in the historical district.
Historic business district?
Periwinkle,
It is.
it is now?
It is now.
It is now.
It moved down to Middle Lane, yes, sir.
Yeah, they moved.
Yeah, and Back Street is on private property. Does Periwinkle, when they bring it, is it on private?
It should be now,
Yeah, it
yes.
should be, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now, I do have a question where you, just going back to definitions, I know this was an existing definition before we actually moved into talking about the mobile accessory units. I believe there could also be not just food trucks, but there are a lot of people who have pop-up shops, boutiques that are mobile as well, selling clothing and other items outside of food. So I'm okay with mobile accessory.
Produce stands,
Produce
ice cream
stands.
cart.
It covers quite a bit of landscape there, other than just specifying food trucks. But the vacant lot in town is what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe that needs to be updated simply because I can have a vacant lot and have somewhat of a food truck rodeo if I ask for a special use permit. I'm not quite sure how the vacant lot, because there's no tied usage to the vacant lot.
It's pointless to include it because it would only be allowed as an accessory use, and if
Right.
it's vacant, there's no principal use.
No
So that we
principal
should
use.
definitely pull that out. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah, that was one of my questions too.
okay, very good.
So, just to get back to in the historic district, but I think this applies for all of the town, just so I understand. We're gonna continue allowing food trucks, or whatever we're calling them, on private property, including in the historic district. But you've also put in this, special use permit if the board wanted to grant first an encroachment agreement and then a special use permit. It could possibly be on public property or the right-of-way in a public street, but it wouldn't be, you'd have to get a special use permit. You couldn't just automatically do that. Am I understanding that correctly?
Right, and any current users of this would have to then come in for special use permits to cover this use that's happening currently.
So in a way, what you're kind of saying too is, like you said earlier, we're taking this slowly. So we're not saying we would never have food trucks on a public street, public right-of-way, but we're not also opening it up to say you can go wherever you want on the public right-of-way. So we're kind of just slowly seeing would this work or this not work, and you would have to come to the board and we'd have to consider where the location is.
Yes.
Unless it was on private property, then it's a second, or it's an accessory use.
Well,
Those
even on
are-
private property, that would have to come for a special use permit.
Okay, but those would not have to have an encroachment agreement because it's on
Correct.
public or private property?
Mhm.
Okay.
So if it's on public property, it would have double approvals from the board. But that
Okay.
definitely hands the discretion back to this board to make those determinations for any of these requests.
So I'm confused. Are you saying residential property, it is allowed or not allowed?
We would not allow an accessory use mobile vending. Now, if they came through and they had something that meets one of that exceptions, then that would be
I
not
understand,
meeting our
but-
approvals.
But the ones that we're permitting,
Right.
we're not allowing any on any residential property, is that correct?
As proposed, yes.
So when you say private property, it's
Sorry,
not
right.
resident, it has.
Commercial, private property.
Well, non-residential.
But would that exclude, that wouldn't exclude like a private event where the mobile vending was there for someone's own private function, correct?
Right, and so that's one of the exceptions that I've got in here, sub 5, any person providing catering and deliveries to private events not serving the general public. So if I bring in, some sort of private catering for a wedding at my house, then that's fine, because I'm not serving the general public, I'm not conducting business, So that's one of the exceptions.
And no permits required for that?
Correct.
Okay.
Regarding the encroachment agreement, that is just a tool that we can use. We don't have to directly reference the encroachment agreement in this ordinance, right?
If the board's desire is to allow a mobile vending business on public property or in a public right-of-way, I think the way it stands right now, it's just flat out prohibited. So you would put in, and I think we've got 6.4, Romanette 4, as Michelle has called it, be located on town-owned property or within a public right-of-way. And then you would say something like, unless the applicant has obtained an appropriate encroachment agreement or other authorization from the town to do so. So I would want it in there.
Okay, so you would want a direct reference, okay.
I would want a direct reference in there that it would be a possibility, because as it's phrased now, it's just prohibited, period, end of story.
I didn't know, like, within the special use permit, if we could put a condition in there about an encroachment agreement, because what I don't want to do is, like, open ourselves up to a lot of issues with just putting it out there that you can get it, you have the option for an encroachment agreement.
Just
if we're not quite there yet. But I was hoping that it could be kind of a silent tool that we could use.
It's not
Well,
silent anymore.
I think I'm concerned about encroachment agreements. Encroachment agreements, basically, they wouldn't be temporary, right? They would run with the property, almost like how we have on
Yes.
Pollock Street.
Temporary.
I'd imagine.
That's right.
I imagine then the owner would then have to have insurance, and we'd have to keep up to making sure that the owner has insurance on that encroachment area.
Once you allow these uses on town-owned property or within the public right-of-way, it opens up that whole can of worms.
Yeah, I feel like we're then giving away town-owned property to.
That's the next thing to come. What are you gonna charge? Is
Right.
it going to be an encroachment agreement?
Right.
Or is it going to be a license or rental agreement where the town actually makes money for use of its space?
And the thing that I've seen in other communities is, when do you say no? If you say yes to one business owner, do you then have, you're basically then choosing winners and losers? How many total encroachment agreements is enough for the town? And that can get really sticky and create contention in the community too, between business owners. The other concern I had too regarding, and maybe Kyle can speak to the, or Michelle, on Middle Lane, when I look at the street on Middle Lane, is there rights of way on Middle Lane as well with a lot of the businesses that are there? Or does that street go right up to the property line? Because this would also involve right of way, I would imagine, too.
Subject matter expert.
Boy, I wish Mark Eakes was here right now. Our understanding is there is no right-of-way. The pavement is actually what's considered the right-of-way right now.
Okay.
I think based on our legal research and our property records research, it was an alley, and the alley is now
Is the
Middle
alley.
Lane. It's a lane.
All right.
Okay. Very big alley. So with the encroachment agreement, just getting back to that, my concern is that with a special use permit, if it were granted for this particular use, runs with the property. Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. An encroachment agreement will do the same if you would do that, or can you make it temporary just for the use of that time frame?
Well, I think the encroachment agreement or license or rental agreement or whatever the legal instrument ultimately was would have to run for the duration of the special use permit.
Yeah, that's a caveat right there.
So,
And we can sunset those special use permits. It's a tool that we've used recently.
Okay.
So I need to run a little scenario out loud here because I'm starting to get confused. Based on some research I did in other towns, a lot of other towns similar to ours, there's the vendor has to get a permit and they have to get a permission from the private property or the commercial or business property owner. So I kind of thought this is where we were going, but it looks a little different, but it sounds like it's not. So who applies for the special use permit? Does one food truck apply for it? Or does somebody with an idea that they want to bring in different food trucks at different times for a property and get a private property permission? I'm kind of starting to lose grasp.
I think it's a property owner, right?
The property owner, the business owner, would say, I want to bring in food trucks every Friday and Saturday. Here's my food truck space. Can I do it? So the individual food trucks themselves would not be the ones asking for permission on this.
Okay, so then why do they have to get owner permission? Like if they're leasing the restaurant or they're leasing the building? Okay, so, okay. Gotcha.
Make sure the landowner understands what's being requested.
Okay, so it is a little bit different from what other towns are doing. All right.
Yes, it's not a food truck permitting program that you might see in other communities because we're not regulating the mobile businesses themselves. We're regulating the land use of those being placed in town.
Okay.
Clear as mud? Good. So I think staff has actually come back with some ideas that was presented to them from the board and kind of worked this all through. And let's see if we can't recap some of this and we can kind of narrow this down to get to a conclusion at the end of this. I think we've got some questions about the definition, whether permanent or temporary basis, more solely towards an outdoor setting on the premises. And I think we should strike vacant lots. But is there any question about permanent or temporary basis within that first definition? It gives anybody any heartburn. Do you want to remove it? Does it make a difference? What's the impact?
To Commissioner Oliver's point, I think that it doesn't add anything and brevity, so we can pull it and it'll have the same effect.
Okay.
I would just look at those first two sentences, try to read them to yourself and standing in a mirror and see if you understand what they say when you're done.
I think it got Frankenstein from a couple of different efforts.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand your consternation with that.
Can we just go over the land use and also the locations that we're going to say that we would allow this in? Even on my computer, my colors are just not lining up to what I'm seeing. And I don't know if we can zoom in on downtown and understand. I can't tell if
there's a link.
that church parking lot is considered
my link.
TCA or if it's considered downtown business water.
There's two pinks.
Yeah, there's two
There's
pinks.
two pinks,
and I'm
two
getting
yellows,
really,
yeah.
off, and I really want to make sure that we have this right for where we're allowing or saying that mobile vending is allowed.
So that pink on the waterfront is the historic waterfront business district. There is a hot pink
So there
that's a
wouldn't be
little
approved.
different.
Yeah.
That's a different zoning district. I understand it looks very similar, but those are two different districts there.
So
Can you bring page 74 up?
Well, wait a minute, can we just-
I want him to, on the TCA question, it's not marked.
I think
That's not, is that your question?
He asked about TCA.
Okay.
That's why I
So we're
went to
saying-
TCA.
Neither of the pinks are proposed.
neither of the pink. So but if you pull up the downtown or the land use as well, if you look on Turner Street, moving up Turner Street from downtown, which is there's middle. Are those pink right there on?
On Pine, north of Pine, yes, those are TCA.
Okay, but what about closer to downtown by Courthouse Square and Craven Street?
That
So
light
that's not-
pink,
yeah,
that's
that.
transitional.
That's transitional.
Kind of our office and institutional district.
And are we saying, are we placing that there's be allowable use of mobile? Yes.
Yeah,
in
that one is
transitional.
added in
Okay,
for
all right,
proposed.
just wanted to make sure. That makes sense.
Just for clarity on the same thing, Michelle,
Yes, sir.
we're not allowing it in a PUD.
Correct.
Right.
We kind of, I went with everything and pulled things out.
Right.
So I went with anything that's residential or largely residential pulled out. Now, we can add in PUD because it is arguably got some commercial as well.
I'm thinking about the elementary school site that's PUD, is it not, Kyle? I'm just asking.
R20.
Oh, they're the ones that have to speak up
Mulberry.
about it. I don't own it anymore, but.
Right.
But I just question whether the PUD, whether a mobile food accessory device, whatever we're calling it, would be allowed or should be allowed.
Yeah, if it didn't have a generator, it might be beneficial to some people who live around there.
Well, they have a communal meeting space, and you may want to have food service at that meeting space. That's a very prime question.
Especially if they have weddings there, which is most likely they will have most.
Dessert trailers.
Which that may fall under the exception.
Which what?
That would fall under the
On
exception.
the
Private.
Weddings on private property.
Yeah. It's not for general business, it's
Right.
to
Oh,
cater an
it's invite-
event.
So-
That's a-
They
Yeah.
can buy it on
Yeah, so if there's events being
Loophole.
catered, but if they're hosting a food truck there as a regular occurrence, as a business, then that would be what we would be addressing.
Understood.
I know with the industrial districts, there's a question there, but I know that Mill Whistle hosts food trucks and they're light industrial. So, I kind of left that in for consideration. I'm sure they're not going to have a lot of food trucks out at the airport, but, that's a conversation that we can continue to have if we want to restrict that direction as well.
I think the airport would want it. They've done it.
They've had it, but that's not for general public use, though.
Yeah, it's for
Yeah,
their,
it's for the events. Commissioner Cooper?
So, yeah, you brought an interesting point in terms of Old Elementary School. If they had a food truck set back up in that property, I mean, who's gonna be monitoring that?
that's,
How will we know?
yeah, how would we know?
Well, once I buy my items, I'll report it.
Yeah, and that's generally an issue that we have with code enforcement for any enforcement of the LDO. And we do have a code enforcement officer on staff, and so that's something that we deal with every day. How will we
Yeah.
know if somebody's building something without a permit? Things like that.
And that seemed to be the problem out this town, is that and that's why a lot of things is escaping, because we don't either have the manpower, or there's no one there to address these issues, and so therefore people just sometimes, hey, town don't have the lineage or the manpower to monitor everything, and they go about their business. So,
Yeah, and we were really grateful that the board pushed us in the direction to have a code enforcement officer on staff, because now we can, kind of look at that a little bit more intently.
one person trying to cover the town of Beaufort.
Better than no people, or just me.
I don't mean to
Thank you.
muddy the muddy waters, but from past experience, for example, you're gonna have a bank that closes at 5 o'clock. And that parking lot lends itself to be very desirable. What's the status of the board? What's the pleasure of the board? Using a bank or a similar, could be a lawyer's office, could be anything commercial in nature, that would be a prime location for resale of that food. Is your desire to allow that or to deny that? We want to craft it as such, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. but-
Allow it.
Okay,
Well, some of the language, though, gets in the way of that because
That's
of
what I was asking.
the number of parking spaces and so forth, right? That you
Yeah.
put in
Right,
there.
and that's just make sure you're not shooting yourself in the foot by allowing a food truck and they take up all your parking spaces. Now, we're not asking that you have sufficient parking spaces to meet those users of the food truck. We just want to make sure that people can still patronize the principal use. But to that point, we can remove that provision based on hours of operation. That's, easy enough to throw out if that's where, in the direction we want to go in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of the banks will lend it to yard sales, mostly. We've seen that happen quite a bit. And charitable organizations selling items, Christmas trees. That's not a mobile vendor, but,
That would fall under an exemption.
yes.
And what's proposed, just curious, fines for violations and so forth? Would that fall under, where would that fall?
So that would be the same as any other provision in the LDO, pretty much. There's a period for compliance to allow the person either to stop what they're doing, apply for the special use permit, get right. If it continues, it is a $500 per day fine, and that's for anything in the LDO. So it's a pretty heavy hammer. But obviously, we work towards getting people in compliance before we bop them over the head.
Not of yet.
Yes, but once they get that special use permit, that's it. It's a lock.
I
Okay.
have one more big
Yes.
item. Sorry, Mayor Harker, I know you're trying to facilitate us to
Get
a
home before
decision,
dark.
And thank you for that, but I want to ask about, if someone comes for a special use permit and they want to have multiple food trucks there, our draft doesn't address that, do we? But would we address that in each case and say, well, we think you have too many there for X reason, safety or ingress egress, or?
So that's a good question, how you want to handle something like that. Right now, as it's presented, it's kind of just addressing one at a time. If somebody has enough space for multiple food trucks, I think that could be something that the board considers. Should we leave it open for accessory mobile vending spaces so they can ask for 2 or 3 at a time if they've got the space and everything and they're able to ask for that? As long as the food trucks are remaining accessory to the principal use, then that may be an okay way to move forward. Do you want to allow for multiple food truck spaces?
Right, well, could we accommodate that as it's written and they can just apply for the permit and list that in the application? Or will we need to expressly put it in the rule language?
I want to make sure when I'm updating the definition or updating the language that it doesn't restrict it to one at a time. So they can ask for a special use permit for 1 space or ask for a special use permit for 3 spaces? Or are you saying that they would have to ask for a special use permit for each individual space?
Oh, no, I meant 1 special use permit that would cover all of
Multiple.
the maximum number that they would host at one
Okay.
time.
Yeah, and I can make sure that the language doesn't prohibit something like that. So somebody could come in and ask for a special use permit for multiple spaces in one application. I think that's cleaner as far as the site plan is concerned. So just making sure it's not restricting a request like that.
Right, right. I was just noticing in other communities, I mean, they allow multiple per property, but they just allow like X number per acre or something like that. We don't have to do that now, but just so that we can consider more than one would be good for me, because there aren't very many circumstances around town that would allow for that, but I don't want to preclude it either.
Well, it's better to have the information up front as what the proposed use would be. That way you can make a decision as far as if that's going to impact the quality of life around the neighborhood, so on and so forth, all the things that you would have to consider under your special use permit. You don't want to have somebody apply for one thing and do something different. That never happens, but to do something different than what has actually been proposed. You don't want them to take advantage of the special use permit. Okay. All righty. I don't know if we're getting close to a decision or not. Let's see. Let's start from the very beginning. We've got the definitions that needed to be updated. We've already run through that. I think we should probably take a look at any of those if you feel like that needs to be changed and germane to this conversation. Okay. I think the definition as far as mobile vending unit or accessory, because there are going to be more than just food trucks, that should probably stay because there could be other items that will be filling in that space.
And even expanded upon.
And expanded upon. So we have Commissioner Oliver's concern is about taking anything that is not with an S that has a yellow highlight on it, make that a white box. Commissioner
I
Spiegler?
think too, maybe, so that map that you showed, Michelle, with the red zones, maybe just
Yes.
making, yep, that one on the right, just making sure that
Consistent.
that is consistent with the list. I think that would probably satisfy. Yeah.
Make sure this part is the same as
Consistent,
that.
yeah.
or
Make sure
vice
the
versa.
map is reflected in the table.
I think specifically the airport shown in red, and I'm not sure in
Yeah.
the textual ordinance if the right box is checked. Is I think what we want to cross-reference on
Yeah.
your list.
That it's in the correct zoning district?
Well, so the map on the right with the red, that
Yes.
is the proposed areas that food trucks and other uses can, that's where we're saying the food trucks
The
can
zoning
go.
districts, yes.
Okay.
We just think there's a couple of inconsistencies with that map and the table that also lists where they can go, and just making sure that it's consistent.
Specifically with the overlay districts, I think is where we see it. I see it. Let me ask you just a specific question. 4th of July, residential area, food truck.
So there's a party at your house on the 4th of July.
It's
what I'm
not
hearing.
already at your
On
house.
cul-de-sac, on the cul-de-sac street. Well, then it becomes, what's the definition of, quote, general public?
I know, but your intent was to have you and your friends though, right? I mean, you weren't gonna open it up to
Yeah.
everybody, are you?
You gotta remember, I'm running for political office, and I'll take anybody to do anything. I just wanna make sure that we're all, I know what the intent is.
Yeah.
Is that what this says?
Well, you can't have it on the street anyways. It'd have to be in your drive. Well, it can't be
a
because
private
it's a
street.
private, oh, it's a private street.
Okay. Private streets. Is that okay? It's not private property, which is what we kind of alluded to earlier.
It's not a public street.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
we might
still-
want to put a pin in that, because then you're talking about ingress, egress, access of fire, police, EMS. There's some other issues there. That's a good point. I'm not speaking for anybody, but that's just, what say you, Dr. Eitner, on the private street?
So we pulled the section that we worked on in chapter 113, where we said town-owned property or right-of-way. That's not reflected on this section, because that's kind of more generally provided in the LDO. So we don't, typically in rights-of-way, streets, things like that, off of private property, it's not something that we're going to be allowing. Like if you wanted to put a shed in the common area or something, that would have to be agreed on by the common area holders. But yes, the streets are generally going to be for emergency access. A block party is going to be not a case-by-case basis, but, you know, kind of understanding what those are for. You know, we closed down Middle Lane for Mardi Gras, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we typically see requests for that for private streets.
We should probably think forward to that, considering we have somebody who's going to throw a Fourth of July party in the cul-de-sac. But you just never know, because there are some areas in our town that do have private streets and feel like they may want to be able to do that. But for safety purposes, we may want to really tighten that up.
Are HOAs private?
Yes.
Well, you have HOAs and then you have public streets within a HOA.
Yeah, but I think now, we've already beat up streets. I know I'm talking about HOAs.
Yeah, but there's
If
still
it's-
public
Yeah,
streets.
if it's residential, then,
Yeah.
yeah, if it's zoned R8 or something, then it's still R8 regardless of who owns it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You can have a party, but you can't resell there.
Yeah, you can't have.
We do have,
Okay,
we do
just
have
park-
private streets with HOAs. Correct.
Yeah, we do have public streets with HOA too.
And private as well.
Yeah,
You have a mix.
yeah.
There's a mix, so
There's a mix,
an HOA may have a private road, it may have a DOT road, it may have a town-owned road, but I think that the classification that we're talking about here is a private party, a wedding, a reception, a graduation, permissible. To park this food truck, trailer, or some sort of mobile vending unit in a public area, which is going to be a private roadway, public roadway, or a DOT-maintained road, should have some sort of a caveat or restriction to it for the fact that it's of ease of access as well as public safety. I think we need to address that.
Yeah,
If, for example, if an organization brought a food truck as an employee appreciation, and that food truck's not aiming to sell to people out on the street, hey, here's my feather flag, come over to my food truck, they're really just catering to that organization, that's going to fall under this exemption.
okay. Alrighty, so I think we still need to button up the roadway, whether they can be put on public or private. But I guess we're just sticking with private property, not, okay. Alrighty, what else is there that I forget? Any other further questions about encroachments? Because what's been presented, is that been clear for everybody?
Let's just stay away from the encroachments.
Let's
Sorry
stay away
I
from
dug
that. You
into
didn't hear it at all. It was a Jedi mind trick. You didn't hear it at all.
Ari offered up some language
Ari.
on that would help clarify that, or as provided by an agreement from the town, because that would cover it.
We could also hear what the public has to say about this encroachment agreement at the public hearing
Okay.
about this next time. So I'm not totally tied to the idea, just.
But we don't want to lock ourselves out. If the intent is to be able to allow it in the future, and we say that it's not allowed, then we're
Right.
locked.
Okay. So we're just going to make that decision today.
Yeah, leave that one.
Leave it in that. Okay.
Some further public input.
Right. So then also multiple spaces within the special use permit. And then you've made your suggestions. It's making sure the maps align with the definition, or vice versa. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to be clear, we are striking the shall not allow for operation of mobile vendors when the principal use is not in operation.
Yeah, we are.
That's proposed to be stricken, yes.
Yes.
All right, just being clear.
Mm-hmm. All righty.
Patience of Job, Michelle.
Michelle, do you have what you need from us?
Yes.
All
I
right, I
have
think
my
we're heading in a
marching
much
orders.
better direction. It's getting a little bit clearer. Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, thank you.
All righty. Great job, gang. All right, so now we're going to move on to the Cadet Hotel, the 400 block, the encroachment agreement. Do we have Elizabeth and Ari on this one, or?
Area, I think. I don't think Elizabeth wants any part of this.
What?
Thank you.
reading the email, I'll update you on the occurrences. Earlier this summer, I guess it's fall now, but back in the summer, we had asked the owner to provide us within 30 days of our approval of the encroachment agreement, a rehabilitation schedule. What's the plan? What's the outlook? When is the work going to happen? The board will remember that recent conversation. That was relayed to the owner through her attorney. The reception was initially, yeah, sure, we can do that. And in fact, I think I mentioned that to Commissioner LaPiccolo during the week after Labor Day, that it should be forthcoming that week. I followed up the following week, where are we with the schedule, and this is the email that I received back, basically saying, we're not going to get you a schedule unless the encroachment agreement is recorded. We want that finalized and recorded, and then we'll work on getting you that schedule. And it's also with the thought that the owner has been unable to get engineers, architects, et cetera, to work with her, given the fact that the encroachment of the patio has been unresolved. She's owned this building since 2021. The encroachment agreement has been on the table since the spring of '24. So I offer that as further context to that statement. I'm sorry the update isn't more positive, but this is where we are. I remain convinced that if we release the encroachment agreement and record it, we will be sitting here wondering when anything's going to happen with the building, or when a schedule will be forthcoming or shared with us. So I think the board's at the point of, do we look at enforcement action of some type vis-a-vis this building? It does not necessarily have to be demolition. In 160D, there is the ability to ask for a receiver to be appointed, and perhaps some stabilization steps taken with the building to perhaps preserve it for future renovation. But, the asking for schedules and what's going to happen and when it's going to happen, we've been doing that since 2021, to be frank, and this is where we are. So I'm open to the board's direction and, of course, any questions that you may have.
Well, first, I already thank you for seeing this through and making the effort for the town to try to get this building restored. It's really, it's turned into kind of a blight in the community, and it's really, to me, it's kind of sad to see that. It's a really important part of our town, our community. And I want the community to understand that this is not a owner or family member that's been holding onto this building and they just are, in dire straits. This is a developer. This is someone that was selected from Preservation North Carolina to have the funds and have the will to go ahead and preserve this property. And for years, the town has been trying to get this owner to move forward on the property and to restore it. And that's what the community would like to see. And it's really kind of sad to hear that, and even to have the attorney say things such as, she'd like to have the encroachment agreement signed and recorded so she can begin her process of determining what her renovation timelines will look like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really kind of sad to read that. So, I'd like to see what avenues and what options are available to kind of move this along. I think the community would like to see this preserved. I would imagine the other board members here are in the same camp. I can't speak for them, but I would imagine they are as well. So, I think we need to have that conversation about options.
Okay. Any further comments?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to hearing about our options under 160D. And I know we have gone over this question a million times, but what is our ability to directly approach Preservation North Carolina? And I know there were some limitations to that, or some concerns about that, but if it's worth reigniting that conversation, that's great. If not, we can focus on 160D or anything else you can recommend, Ari.
Yeah, I think at this point, our focus needs to be on 160D and what can the town do, independently of what Preservation NC or any other organization may be able to bring to the table. Previously, when I've mentioned 160D, I've talked in terms of demolition, and that was not necessarily the only option. 160D does allow a receivership process through which the town can ask a superior court to appoint a receiver to attend to various things. I mean, I don't know that the town wants to be in the position of renovating or rehabbing the building, but I could see a situation where a receiver could at least secure the structure, attend to exterior repairs, security, windows, make sure the roof is waterproof, things like that, so that the building doesn't continue to deteriorate. And that's one option that I think we really need to investigate and see if the town wants to pursue to at least maintain the status quo, because day by day, every time it rains, that building's getting in a worse condition. I mean, no doubt about it. So that would be my primary way of going about it that I would suggest the board consider, and we can certainly bring back the specifics at the next meeting or perhaps the next workshop so we can have a more robust discussion if that's what the board would like to see.
I have a concern that that's our objective. We want to see it either redeveloped by a qualified person or demolished. I don't think we want to get into the other, I don't think that's our goal.
Understood. It is, I think the problem with the receivership is what is it you're trying to achieve?
Correct.
And who gets to pay for it?
Correct.
And we all know what the answer to that question is. You may be able to ultimately recoup your money when the property is sold or redeveloped, but there's going to be a float there. I mean, you know, going the receivership option is not, you know, the silver bullet without any risk or without any associated work, but it is an alternative to a straight-up demolition, I guess is my point. If the board looks at it and says, you know, we want to pursue demolition, that certainly would be what I would call the primary.
And I'm not saying that that is our objective. I'm saying we have to figure out what our objective is.
Define your
and
objective.
then use the tools to get there.
Correct.
And unfortunately, I don't think keeping it dry and doing that and just extending out, I don't think that's our objective. I think we have to figure out what our objective is and then use the legal mechanisms that are available for a community to address those objectives.
Is there a way we can find out if the building is savable at this point? I mean, I feel like if somebody lit a match in there, it would be like the Ward Hancock house, like, you know, I mean, I feel like it's
Some
wood and
cinder
really
block
bad
in there.
I
condition.
know where I was the night the word Hancock House.
He has an
I have
alibi.
my alibi.
He's got an alibi.
I think the town and the commissioners need to remember that this has been an issue not just since 2021. I mean, I think before the property was sold to the current owner, the town had been trying to facilitate the renovation or rehabilitation of this building for something like 10 years. Kyle's nodding, so, okay.
If not more.
So, in that process, I mean, there were numerous inspections. There was, I believe, an engineering study done at one point, and the conclusion was it was not economically feasible to save the building. If you throw enough money at it, sure, you can save it, but that was the conclusion, I mean, in 2017 or 2018, something along those lines, so.
What is the Preservation of North Carolina? Are we still in communication with them as well?
Not very good communication.
Not good? Good communication from them?
Not very good communication right now, no, sir.
Why? They won't talk to us, or they don't want to get in the middle, or what?
I've had difficulty getting my telephone calls returned.
Okay. That's a good start.
Yes, sir.
You know, the goal, and we can go back to the intent of why even Preservation NC was even involved. There, to Aries' point, there's been some longstanding discussions with the family who owned it prior to that to see if we can bring this up to code, and we understand that there were some difficulties there. Their goal in wanting to have it put into the hands of someone who could continue to preserve the history of that building was the goal. And I think it's unfortunate that it has run into the hands of an individual that doesn't seem to want to help us get to that goal. There's always seemed to be some other ask, some other thing. It's almost if you give a moose a muffin, they're going to want another. But there's going to be no outcome that's going to actually save the history of this building. I know it may not be in the historic district, but it's tied to the identity of this community. And at some point in time, it's beginning to lose that identity. It's becoming a blight. It's becoming a sore eye. We're beginning to lose that. The longer we wait to continue to put it into someone else's hands to resolve that issue.
That's hard to settle through legal remedy.
That's right, and this current owner closed on the property with the help of Preservation NC the day before, a couple of days before it was scheduled to be demolished. So, I mean, literally, we had the contractor mobilized to go and take the building down, and that's what it took to actually get.
And is not the demolition permit still in effect?
No, sir.
It's not.
No, sir. That was over 4 years ago.
That had to be released so you could go ahead and sell the building.
That's right. We had,
So-
and we had proceeded under the town's, derelict building, minimum housing, minimum structure ordinance, and we had the demolition ordinance in effect, which was the order from the board at the time.
A court, and ultimately a court.
Well, no, it was actually ultimately just from this board. We have that authority to demolish the building, and we had to release that order to allow the sale to go through.
How long does it take us to put into effect a effective order of demolition?
It really depends on whether the owner's going to contest it or not.
Well, which they would, but, so how long does that take, including contestations?
I would probably talk in terms of, 3 months, 90 days, 120 days, something like that.
Yeah. What's the appeal, to whom does their appeal go to?
Superior Court.
So that's 6 months.
Once it gets into court, you can speculate on your time horizons or deadlines. It could be forever.
So if you did some form of litigation or taking it to court, that's going to be a pot of money. And then if you take receivership under 160D, don't know what that pot of money would look like. I have a feeling that the legal scale will tip it to the point where it's going to be more legal than it probably would be to shore it up. I'm just guesstimating. Yeah.
The receivership would be the tool if the board decides that we want to maintain the status quo of the building. We want to try to shore it up and preserve it. If that's the goal, and that's going to have a cost, and you're exactly right, Mayor, it's not just the legal cost, it's the cost of that work.
Right.
And it's not the goal, frankly, that we want.
If that's not the goal, then we need to take that off the list, and we're left with basically do nothing or proceed with the demolition route.
So what about another private individual?
Yes, sir.
What did you say?
Another private individual is what he said. So I mean, somebody else buy this individual out who's much more motivated, but that person would have to agree to sell.
Sure, we can't.
Yeah, we can't.
We can't.
Yeah, no, we
compel
can't force it, but.
Yeah.
That's right.
I do think we need to try to engage with Preservation North Carolina again, because I
Well, they're not
believe-
taking this calls.
I believe that they do have some ability to force the hand. And I think it's just worthwhile. I think it's worth trying to make that formal, communication with them, try to have a formal meeting with them, and see if we can all get on the same page.
I mean, if the town wants to set up a meeting with Preservation NC as another, attempt to contact these individuals, I don't see where they're going to have any capability of moving this along, because we've asked for their help more than once and has been shut down. I think they're powerless at this point in time. So if we're going to have a conversation with them, I'd like to make sure it's a productive one, and one that would end to the fact that they would actually be able to do something. But we've even asked for information about their agreement, and they won't even release that. So we don't even have the contract agreement.
That's not public record?
No, I guess not.
According to Preservation NC, it is not.
Yeah. So we're
Well,
told.
what if we tell them that we're seriously looking into a demolition order? Would the conversation
Probably
be
say go
different?
ahead. Probably say
Can
go
I
ahead.
ask
I think we have, haven't we?
So let's say that we do go forward and we demolish the building. Who owns the property once we do that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The way that would work is we would pay for it. We would pay for the demolition. And then we have the ability to charge it through the property tax system against the property, so it would become part of the tax bill at the end of the day. So there'd still be what I call the float. We'd be paying for it today, but we would recover at some future point, either when the property is sold and the tax bill is paid, or when the owner voluntarily pays the tax bill, or when there's a tax foreclosure. There's usually an end game there when you have the ability to charge it through the property tax system.
So likely with the demolition, then we would just have an empty lot there until until something changed.
Correct.
We have the authority to lend it out of demolition.
Yes, sir, because we'd be the ones doing the demolition, so. And I want to say the estimate.
It's very expensive as a cinder block building.
Yeah, for some reason I've got the number $80,000 in my mind.
Demolition and
That
removal.
was from
Yeah.
2021, so.
Yeah, just the weight of it. But now, let me ask you another question, playing devil advocates. I'm sorry, Kyle, did I cut you off?
You said it potentially much lower.
Around $18,000.
$18,000, not 80, okay, I'm glad he corrected that.
I don't like your math.
And-
Stick
and
to
Kyle-
Larry.
I went to law school, not math school, so.
Well, I'm sure it's more.
Yeah, but this is a property that has been sold as, I guess, as a tandem, because you have the hotel and then you have the house next to it. I don't know if those two are separate. Now, they're working on the house next to the hotel. They've been doing some roofing work and things of that nature that I visibly have been seeing.
Yeah, those are titled separately.
They're
They're
separate.
two separate
Okay.
lots, yes, ma'am.
Kyle, if that property was demolished, would the setbacks be different, right? I would imagine that that property would be even worse, be less valuable in the fact that you wouldn't be able to build back in the same footprint, correct?
That is correct. Of course, pretty close, however, with the Cedar Street mixed use, because the way you have it now, it could be very, very close to the existing footprint. And I think the other part is that some of you may not be aware of, and I wish that Greg Mishaw was here, but I know Donovan is the town's put in brand-new water and sewer features for that building as well when we did the Cedar Street renovation at our cost. We've not been reimbursed or anything for that. And that was not a small number either.
Can you lean that also?
How did we do that? Did we send them a bill and they?
We did it just as part of the renovation of that whole Cedar Street project with the stormwater, water and sewer. It was old infrastructure, and we put in, a new tap to the building.
Was there any other property that was done that way, so that we don't just say that we've done it for this one? Have we done it for another?
I don't believe so.
Because if we haven't charged them, I don't know why we would charge these folks.
So I don't believe so, Mayor, but I think that's something easily that we can find out for you.
Okay, all righty.
So on the footprint, say you demolish it. The present address is what, Pollock or Marsh? What is it?
Cedar.
No.
Well,
It's not a Cedar Street address, is it?
Pollock,
It's
400 Pollock
It's
Street.
400 Pollock, but
But
you
it goes
could,
on the corner.
you could have an address on either one. You could have an address on Cedar or on Pollock.
So, say you demolish it, so then therefore, say change the front end to Cedar Street and go out in that direction in terms of setback or the footprint of the building.
Your setback on a corner lot there, you're still looking at anywhere from 5 to 7 feet off the property line. And if you look at the survey for that property, part of the building is actually, at the time, was in the DOT right-of-way. Now it's our right-of-way. So part of the building is on our property.
And they've asked for an easement on that, so
Yes.
we're, just to be clear about that
And-
one.
Yes, ma'am, and on that note, we reached an acceptable agreement, an agreement that the town could sign and that the owner accepted. So, you know, the understanding was always, once we reach an agreement on the easement, we're going to get our construction schedule before we actually sign the document and record it. That's been the understanding for quite some time now.
Yeah.
So
The goal line has always been moving with contingencies coming from us, but nothing in response from the owner. Yes.
I think we have to give reasonable and effective notice to the owner, full bore, proper, registered, all the proper deals, that this board is going to set a date for its final decision concerning the demolition of I'm going to use the 400 Pollock is a big building, not the house, is that right?
Yeah.
And address it strictly on Pollock. And I think we have to do that to give notice that we're out. I mean, we're done. Now, again, we don't have to do anything, but I think we have to commit to giving formal notice of our pending decision to do a demolition permit.
So, but in other words, a counteract to this
Yeah.
email here is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we're just going to demo.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're doing, just coming back and saying,
Yep.
I'm terribly
Yep.
disappointed
Sir.
in your response. We
Yes.
tried to do everything we can. 30-day notice, whatever it is what I think is the first. I think you have to give notice before you do anything. That's the first step, is to give notice, is my opinion, but I'll leave that to the council.
it's a very reasonable next step in this saga. Yes, sir.
This is not exactly where I hope this would ever go by any means, any stretch of the imagination.
And I would copy everybody,
Very disappointed.
PNC, the whole, all people of interest.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, maybe just getting that, might put a fire upon it, but I'd hate to see that building come down. I don't mind going the letter out and hoping that it might spark something in her. But the ultimate thing is,
I hate to say it, you gotta go to the courthouse steps to get them moving.
Probably. That's what it took last time.
That's what
Okay.
well,
So is it the direction of the board to send the notice letter that Commissioner Oliver outlined?
Reluctantly for me, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the notice of demolition, it's the notice that we will make a decision to move forward with demolition.
That's
We don't- yeah.
that's correct. The
Yeah,
board
yeah,
is-
so it's like a pre-demolition thing. Yeah, I can agree to that, to try to get her to move on it.
Yeah.
But we don't have to act on the actual demolition
Have
until
not-
another step.
We have not yet acted on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Correct.
I go with that.
But to remove it, we need to see a timeline. We don't need to go dancing around these agreements that they're looking for.
Correct.
Okay?
Are we going to have a timeline for that decision in the next meeting or the meeting after?
I don't know.
Just make it
Typically, a
anticipate?
30-day timeline.
30-day timeline?
Yeah, from the date of the letter, and I'll make sure we get it out in the next day or two.
Okay.
So,
So,
Okay.
be about November meeting, 30 days out.
13.
October 13th is the next meeting. That's not 30.
That's not 30 days.
That's, 30 days would put about
Probably
your work
realistically,
session.
the first
Last
week
week.
in November.
First week in November.
Maybe the work session in October? Or do you need to?
November 10th. So
Or
if we
could it
give
be-
them 30 days, practically, that'll be the next time the board's able to consider it.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
All
You
right,
all
so
right
you've
with that,
got your
John?
directions? Everybody
You all right
okay
with
with that? Consensus? We don't need to do that in a vote. You've got a consensus on that. Very good. All right, now the much awaited, anticipated.
No, you just said this was the most awaited. No,
Oh, this
now-
is the extra most awaited. Here's Commissioner Cooper. We've got Cedar Street Business Corridor Proposal. Commissioner Cooper has the floor. Let's go.
I'm gonna step away.
Sure.
I will get you out of this because mine is 167.
All right, I like competition.
It is 167 videos.
Okay.
Good evening, board members and mayor and members of the audience. I'm here on a conversation that I held about a small business corridor for Cedar Street. And with that, I'm up here today. It was just a dream. All right. So, little history in terms of Cedar Street. As talking to some of the members of the community, I was able to find out that Cedar Street once was pretty much a fully black community, but over time and buying people out, it has changed. And after spoken to them, that's why I'm so taken back in terms of the Goodette Hotel because because of the history that is involved with that hotel and this community. So I hope that we can come to some type of resolve on that. Also, on Cedar Street, we have one of the oldest churches in Beaufort, is Mount Zion, which will be celebrating the 160th anniversary come this November in the same spot. It has been in the same spot for 160 years. So, I just found out today that there was a plan 2018 for Cedar Street and Live Oak, which, to my understanding, I was informed that a good deal of that plan has been in effect throughout Beaufort in terms of Cedar Street and Live Oak. Okay. Go back to that one, I think, yeah. This particular building there was a black school that was open here for a number of years. The county jail also took some of that property because the school was a little larger than just this one particular building here. And later on, I would show something that might spark your interest. Go to the next slide there, please. Okay. This is a vacant lot. There's not a lot of lots, so not a lot of available space on Cedar Street. But though what it is, this is a particular lot here. The owner's not sure what he would like to do with it. Next one. Next one. Nope. That's still that same vacant lot. I believe. Yeah. Trying to get to the one. All right. Of course, this is rolling, and they're not sure exactly. They don't really do any catering, but that building is still there, and the trucks as well. So it's a possibility of maybe getting them to maybe change their thoughts and revamp that building. This building here is owned by Jeff Newton. The white door there is a business. He's looking at it being maybe someone because he was looking to fix it up for his daughter-in-law, who is a beautician, But she has now, I think, maybe changed her profession or whatever. So he's not working on that. And then the gray building, the gray door to the right, he's looking at maybe an apartment or Airbnb. But this is, again, once property that has future potential of being changed and doing other things with it. And next slide, Elizabeth. Okay. This is all the way down to the far end of Cedar Street, down to the where the old bridge used to come across, the old Cedar Street Bridge. What my thought would be is that's a potential for maybe units that would probably maybe upon a good architect person or engineer, whatever, to extend a little beyond the marshland. There's a marshland just there beyond those trees, those bushes rather. Next up. Okay. Here is the county administration building next there to the courthouse. There's a potential future use for that building once the county that is going to be building a new jail, and hopefully they're still, I guess, for his money, whether or not they'll be able to move the administration along with the new jail. If so, maybe we could talk to the county. I would like to see, I was involved with, in 2018, before again moving to this beautiful town here, with the town of New Bern that did an incubator for entrepreneurs where they would have space where they could have, someone could come and have a meeting with them and to have a physical address. But most entrepreneurs don't have a physical address other than maybe their home, but they don't want nobody to be coming to their house. And this would give them that accessibility of being able to have a facility where that they could meet someone other than at their residence. But this would all hinge on whether or not the county moved the administration along with the jail. But this has potential. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're at the end of the bridge. That the town, and there's a photograph later on that you'll see of a nice rendition of what a park, but we don't own this. We have to see. Okay, thank you. Elizabeth, next slide, please. That's it? Oh, welcome to the bank.
Yes.
There it is. Yes. Okay. Property owned by the county. With this, and I have a future rendition of what it could look like. But this also could be, the parking lot itself has the potential of being able, and that's what I asked Michelle about, food trucks. The parking space there could be used for food trucks that could cater to the court employees and those that may be attending court that may not, I don't know if they would want to eat, maybe they have butterflies in their stomach and not eat, but be a good place to have food trucks just to cater to court people. All right. That last one I sent you today, Elizabeth?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of restoring Cedar Street and transforming it into a corridor for small business, Lincoln Front and Marbury Street, celebrating this unique history. So, next. This is the Gannett Hotel. And next slide, please.
Oh, it's not.
And that's what potentially it could look like. Next slide. Yeah, comparison side by side of what it is now to what the potential could be as a cafe or hotel. I guess the encroachment problem would be probably still there, but Looks beautiful, looks nice. Okay, next slide, please. Again, this is the old school, called the Freeman School. And voila, we have another good potential look of what that would look like. Next slide on that one, please. There we go.
That's nice.
Just a thought, imagination of reimagining from the beauty of what it is there now to the potential of what it could be. Okay. Next slide there, please. Okay. And of course, this was just the county building that I was just talking about. It used to be, to my understanding, the credit building, but we can turn around and then make it into an art and craft type building. It would probably take, all of these things would take investment, possibly some from the town and then from private industry or private individuals who would want to make an investment in the town of Beaufort. Next one, please. So incorporating a small business corridor and mixed-use residential area into a historically black neighborhood help create economic opportunities and walkabilities and community vibe while ensuring residents can both live and work locally. Together, this balance support growth and revitalization without sacrificing heritage, allowing future generations to benefit from both economic development and a living record of the black history. Thank you. So, this time I'll take any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Commissioner Cooper? Pepper them. Pepper him with questions.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Cooper. I think that's a great vision, and I would love to see some of those things happen. I hope they do happen and we work towards that. Do you have any action items you want us to take, or this is just a sort of imagining?
Yeah, actually, like I said, I made it a thought, and from that, it matured into what I presented today. And it's just something that I'm not the only one who sees this vision or thing, because there are 3 of us that is involved with this, and each one person, as I was out talking, visualized this as well, is knowing that Cedar Street eventually is going to be just as important to Beaufort as Front Street is. And I think the 2018 plan, in fact, it addresses that in the 2018 plan of the importance of Cedar Street and Live Oak for Beaufort.
I think too, and Commissioner Cooper, we were both on the Main Street Committee earlier this year. And
yes.
We decided not to apply for Main Street, but now that we have a new engagement specialist coming on board at the end of this month, I think there's the opportunity that maybe we might apply 2 years from now. And I know Samantha Darling from the state had said, if you want 2 business corridors, you could look at Front and Cedar. And I really like some of those images and the importance of recognizing the history of Cedar Street as well. So I'd really like us to keep that in mind.
AI is great, isn't it? I mean, I'm glad that technology.
ChatGPT rules.
Glad that technology is out there, AI. You can take a building and let AI run wild with it. So, but again, it's just visualizing what can happen on Cedar Street in the small amount of space that really is available on Cedar Street. Because there's not much. But what is available, it's amazing what we can do with it.
I think the imagery says a lot, the before and afters, and it seemed to just give everybody that good wow factor as to how we all would love to see Cedar Street be a very beautiful corridor, which not only was expressed in the 2018 small area plan, but through your vision as well, keeping it fresh. Maybe as a town, we may not be able to provide fundings, but maybe we could provide some resources that might help. With the Washburn Seminary, that's still owned by the St. Stephen congregation.
Right.
And maybe there are some historic designations that can be part of that church that's going to provide some opportunity for grant money, because I know that they are going to want to do something with that as well. It was the Industrial Arts Building at the time, and that's where African Americans, after slavery was emancipated, that's where they went to get their trade. And it was probably the first, I'm going to say, public school in the town of Beaufort, because there were blacks and whites that did go there at one point in time. But maybe we can help that church out and have a conversation with them to see if we can't save that piece of history. And the church itself requires a little bit of upgrade. And just having those conversations, bringing it fresh forward like you guys are doing, and the couple of people that you're working with, maybe we can partner in somehow getting some of that moving forward, especially those historic buildings.
Yeah, we want to move forward in terms of getting the 501 so that we can apply for grants as a nonprofit.
Okay.
And also get maybe private funding in there as well. Because we see a good vision in terms of Cedar Street.
Yeah, work with the landowner and see what they would like to do with it
Well,
too.
yeah. Well, one landowner, I mean, he not quite sure what he want to do with that property, but it done sparked the interest in him now.
Good, good,
so.
yeah. Sky's the limit.
Yeah, thanks
It
for
is.
presenting this stuff. It makes, after the Goodette Hotel conversation, which kind of had me feeling down, it really inspired me to look at the school restored. And I would love to see that as a priority, and it might, encourage some other property owners within the overlay district to start thinking about what Cedar Street's going to look like in the future and how they could profit from that.
Right. Well, it is different being out here at this podium, trust me. And looking out at my fellow commissioners, and then have the public here as well. But
Everybody look at Melvin.
yeah, it's like I said, it's it's just a dream, a thought that I had, and with that, I think it was presented to the mayor and to Matt, and then I think Matt took it further and said, hey, how about presenting it to the board? Which I want to thank him for that.
Well, that's your vision. Glad to hear about it. Hope to see all of those renderings come to pass. ChatGPT.
Hey, AI can do it.
Yeah.
All right. But thank you.
All right, you ready to come sit down?
I'm ready to come sit down.
Any further questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you need me to make a motion to adjourn?
No, staff is gonna make a comment. Anybody from staff needs to make a comment. All right, so they're conceding their time. So unless there's no comments from the staff, apparently, yes. You want to come sit down and make a motion to adjourn? You can end the meeting off right.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Yeah, look at you. Good job. Great job. You drew those.